Men who have had a cruel wife or girlfriend, what did you do to get out of it? I dated this girl for over a year because I just couldn't figure out how to get rid of her. She was insanely jealous, and any discussion of my unhappiness in a relationship just brought accusations of cheating. These inevitably led to harming. I never really felt like I could fight back. Any action to defend myself would probably have ended with me getting arrested. She was much smaller than me, so most police would most likely take her side. I was trapped. Eventually, her father came to visit. The first time he and I were alone together, he immediately asked if I was okay. He said he knew how she could be. This confused me at first. I barely knew him and didn't know if I could trust him. Just told him everything was fine. It had been for a few weeks. He stayed a few days, and by the end of his visit, I could see he was just a cool dude who knew his daughter had issues. A couple months later, I reached my breaking point. I was miserable. I just wanted her out of my life. I looked in her address book for his number and called. I told him I couldn't take it anymore and was trapped unless I defended myself with physical force. He sighed and said, "Can you hang on till Thursday?" He told me he'd make the 8-hour drive to my house if I could wait a few days. On Thursday afternoon, we were standing in the kitchen where there was a knock on the door. She answered, surprised to see her dad. "What are you doing here, Dad?" He just shrugged and stared at me. I blurted it out. "I'm breaking up with you. We're done." She charged at me, but he was ready. He grabbed her from behind and put her in a full Nelson hold. She was dragged like this across my driveway and thrown into the back seat of his car. The last time I saw her, she was trying to kick out his rear window as he drove away. There's a good possibility I may owe my life to that dude. I feel really bad for him. She was otherwise a wonderful person, but if she lost her temper, look out. Hopefully she found help. Her mom passed away when she was young. Don't remember how, but mostly raised by a single dad. This was before cell phones and the internet. Never talked to her again. If she called, I wasn't home to answer. She did contact my parents years later looking for me, but they didn't give up the info. I looked up her profile on Facebook since then. Seems to be doing okay. And to the real important question, yes, she was amazing in bed. Wow. Imagine the kind of tantrum she must have thrown while growing up to make the dad so chilled about it. Story 2. I hope we're counting emotional and verbal mistreatment. The simple answer is that I let her leave, taking the risk that she might try to hurt herself in retaliation. She used breaking up and veiled threats as a tool to guilt and control me. Drove all my friends away. I wasn't even talking to my roommate hardly, the man I consider my brother and quite possibly my closest friend and who lived in the next room. Constant belittling of my friends. Did the hot and cold thing, 1 minute praising me like I hung the moon, the next minute accusing me of being a cheater or of wanting to cheat. It was really weird looking back. When she started trying to weasel her way in between me and my nuclear family, I knew I had to take the chance that she might hurt herself to get back at me after breaking up. I woke up one morning to screamed accusations of cheating and threats to leave and put myself out of her misery, and I just sort of raised my head off my pillow and mumbled, "All right, I'll drive you to your parents' house in a bit." She was shocked. I knew immediately that I made the right decision because she looked like a kid whose sandcastle had just been kicked over. I just left the job we both worked at. Obviously, she had to keep the leash taut. I heard from a couple people there who actually knew me firsthand that she did indeed attempt. I never found out the method. I wasn't interested in hearing details. After recovering, she proceeded to talk about how horrible I'd been to her, confirming every asinine grapevine rumor she could. Never mind the fact that I rarely had any more than 20 minutes out of her sight at the time. A few of my female coworkers put in for transfers, since she pointed them out as cohorts of my infidelity, and they instantly became personas non grata. I spent a good couple weeks blocking the threats and hate messages from jealous exes and new suitors. Don't ever try to get her back, blah blah blah. I didn't care at that point. I had honestly been pushed to the point that I had to cut the toxicity out of my life, even if it cost her hers. I haven't dated in the years since. Just the knowledge that I was pushed to the point of not caring if a woman ended herself bothers me. I know I'm not responsible and that she's sick, but I'd rather never do anything like that again. I mostly passed the whole thing now, and I've heard from mutual friends that she's actually doing much better. She got healthy, started seeing a therapist, and made a bunch of positive changes in her life. A friend said that her failed relationship with me was the catalyst for change, so maybe I helped the world get a little brighter. Still haven't talked to her. Never will, again, but at least there's ostensibly a quasi-happy ending. My sad little Grinch heart goes out to everyone who's dealt with this. It was about 3 years ago now, and I have an excellent support group through my close friends and my family. I'm lucky enough to have a really healthy support group that cares about me and didn't judge me for staying so long. New suitors messaged him to tell him that he better not try to get her back. That's so pathetic of him. Story 3. I would classify my ex as an emotionally cruel and manipulative person. This culminated in her cheating on me, denying it when I found out, and then truthing me in our group therapist for months. I eventually decided that I had gained everything I could from our group sessions and ended all contact with her. I blocked her everywhere. Months later, she contacted me through GChat of all things, saying that she had information that affected my health and that I would suffer the consequences if I did not reply. I did and was told a few things. Number 1, she allegedly had hepatitis C. Doubtful, really, since it was so rare to get from hospitals. Number 2, she had seen her therapist, who now totally agreed that I was at fault. A lie, since I had seen her only a week before for an individual session, and she mentioned having not seen my ex in months. Number 3, she was now seeing 2 other therapists that both agree that I was a villain. Whatever. After our conversation, during which I told her that I thought she was a dangerous person for me to be around, she contacted many mutual friends on Facebook and told them that I was unsupportive during her time of need. Several of them, mostly those who only knew me as her boyfriend, unfriended me. No big loss. I got tested for STDs just in case, was found clean, and haven't heard from her since. Story 4. After 10 years, I started setting and holding boundaries and gave myself a bottom line for what kind of treatment I would and would not accept, largely thanks to advice from my therapist and some really good friends. She started sensing that she no longer had control over me and made a big show about moving out to try and get me back under her thumb. I just continued holding my boundaries and bottom line, which further enraged her. She caused a huge dramatic scene by coming over in the middle of the night demanding to take the dog. I changed the locks, the garage code, the Netflix password, kicked her off the Google Play family plan, made a therapy appointment, and scheduled a meeting with a lawyer to get my options. Armed with this new information, I told her I was done, and that she could lawyer up if she wanted to, but that I was willing to pay as much as it took me to make sure I was out. That was a month ago, and I've never felt better. If you hear a little voice inside you saying to get out, let it take over. Become your own advocate. Get your life back. Not the Netflix password. Story 5. My first girlfriend was wicked cruel. I tried to break up with her after a few weeks, and she hurt her wrists in front of me to prove how much she loved me. I was terrified. We ended up dating 2 years because she would threaten to end it all, and I was not in a good place due to my mom's gambling. I was homeless for a few months, and she tried to make me depend on her nonstop. When I finally broke it off, I just cut all contact. She had moved schools the week prior. She stalked me for years after and told people I did stuff to her, even though we never went beyond kissing. I lost a lot of friends because of her lies. The last time I had contact with her was when I was in Iraq and my mother just passed away. She sent me a message on Facebook saying condolences for my mom. I didn't even know she passed yet. She even sent flowers to her funeral. She terrifies me. To clarify, she was telling my friends that I coerced her into intimacy before she was ready and wouldn't stop pressuring her, which was not true. My friends didn't stop talking to me but kind of became distant. One of them later, unbeknownst to me, told the girl I was talking to what my ex said, and all of a sudden she just blocked me. I wouldn't find out until later what he said to her and was mad. Luckily, it seems the stalking has mostly stopped. I don't use my Facebook anymore with my real name, and the last I heard from her was a letter she sent me from a fake Facebook account about how much she still loves me shortly after my mother's passing. However, there was some good that came out of it because one of my closest friends I met about a year after that knew her from her new school, and when he heard my name, he said, "Oh, she told me to despise you if I ever met you, but you don't seem anything like the stories she has told me." It still causes issues in my daily life because anything that remotely resembles a guilt trip kind of irks me. But my current girlfriend is amazing and has helped me a lot. Story 6. Emotional cruelty counts? Possibly. She pushed me to the point where I just stopped doing anything that made me happy. I was beyond depressed. Still kind of bounces back and forth depending on the day, but it was bad. One day she started an argument and jokingly asked when I would move out. I told her by the end of the week. There it is. My ex and I were together for a total of 6.5 years. Through that time, she did nothing but complain about how I never do anything to make her life easier, even though I worked hard at my job, at school, trying to help her with her school, her job, keeping her house up to date electrical-wise, etc. She would put me down any chance she got, talking trash on my family on a regular basis, telling me my hobbies were outdated and no one would respect me with them. My music, taste in movies, my friends, even my dreams were all trash to her. I told her about my career choice of training to be a police officer, and she just put me down, telling me I would never make it. Told her I wanted to move out of state to Arizona, and she called me stupid because I wanted to be closer to my family and I love the desert. I started to shun my family and friends because I was just scared of the arguments. I started showing signs of depression, and she would just tell me I had no reason to be depressed. She started to threaten me with a breakup every chance that she got, play mind games with me, and then, for no reason at all, give me the silent treatment for days. There was no hand-holding, no kissing, no hugs, especially if we were out in public. Once she started to bring up me moving out, I finally realized what was going on. A friend took me in, and I immediately got up and left. She got angry at me for it, like everything else, and I just said screw it and changed my phone number. Since then, I've gotten incredibly close to one of my good friends, and she now wants to go out on a date with me. We have a hell of a lot in common, and her family loves me. She makes me feel wanted and appreciated. So, to all of you, remember, there are other women out there that will appreciate us for who we are, for what we do, and will make us feel amazing. Keep your heads up and don't let anyone get in the way of your dreams or who you are. Story 7. I got out of it by moving back in with my dad at the age of 38. We'd been together for about 10 years in a toxic relationship. She was manipulative and emotionally cruel. I was no saint either. Then she started getting physical, and that was when I had a moment of clarity. She was trying to wrestle my debit card away from me so she could go buy more drinks, and I realized if I kept going on with her, things would get worse physically, and I would be the one going to jail. So I threw some stuff in a bag and left for my dad's house. I ended up staying there for about a month while she spiraled further out of control. Eventually, she agreed to help and spent a week in a detox, and I was able to move back home. I got sober as a result, and with a lot of help from my family, friends, and things I don't understand, I've stayed sober since. After detox, she spent about 3 months in a recovery house. Sadly, it didn't take, and she continued to drink and use, but I couldn't let her go. We dated off and on during the time she could stay sober. Eventually, she started seeing someone else and played us off each other, dragging me back into the thick of it. She moved back in with me about 2 years after I first left. History repeated itself, and about 18 months later, I had to head back over to my dad's house because she was getting worse and more physical than ever. Just over a month later, she went away to a recovery community for around 9 months. She managed to get to a year of sobriety, and we went out for a few times, but she was still manipulative and started playing me off other guys again. Then she relapsed. I cut it off and went no contact. She would ping me every 6 months or so, but we never engaged again. Overall, the relationship devoured over 17 years of my life, and I'm still not completely over it. She passed away about 6 months ago. Story 8. Had a girlfriend once that hit her crazy well for a while, but I had a few experiences with PG versions in the past with other women and started to see the signs. Like if I didn't text back right away, she would get angry and possessive and angry. She was always wondering where I was, who I was with, etc. Insisted I see her every night or must be mad at her and would apologize for whatever she did to make me mad. I was in school full-time and worked full-time to pay for it, so I did not have a lot of free time. Didn't matter, that sort of thing. It got to the point where she was threatening to end it all if I didn't text her back, even while I was at work. So I did what I thought was best and told her we're done. I totally cut contact with her after that, cold turkey. I make it my purpose to never go near where she lived or where she worked. Blocked her on social media, no contact. I felt like a total schmuck, but there was no letting this girl off easy without a serious storm. She would have all-day conversations with herself through text without me saying a word, beginning with, "Please don't leave me, yada yada." Then she would get angry and send full-page texts of all bold, awful words. "I'm the best you'll ever have," then "Sorry I was yelling, I just love you so much." Then if you don't text me back, I'm going to end myself. Then "I'm sorry for saying that." This happened every day for a month. I felt terrible for her, but I knew that if I texted back even once, she would win. I would call her friends to tell them she needed their help and almost call the police a few times to check on her. But it was all a ploy for me to respond to her. She would never go through with it. So I ended up contacting a friend of mine who was a cop for advice, and he said to change her phone number and forget about it. So that's what I had to do. Found out a few years later that she had to move back in with her parents because she was self-harming. She was doing this long before I showed up. I couldn't hold down her job. 4th in a year. She made me feel like a real piece of trash the entire time and responsible somehow for her issues. But another part of me knows if it hadn't been me, it would have been someone else. So to answer your question, it was not clean. It was not easy. And it was not without learning a lot about myself in the end. I hope my story helps. Story 9. I stayed in it too long. I'm sharing this, so if anyone else is in this sort of situation, maybe it gives you strength to leave. About 3 months in, I found out she was a user. I sat with her at her family's house when she went through withdrawal. She stayed clean, as far as I know, for almost a year. During that time, our relationship was great. We even moved in together and brought my dog to live with us. She relapsed in October. I finally got her into rehab. She left within a week. I knew then that something was going to break. A few days before the relapse, I'd asked her parents' permission to marry her, but that changed once I found out she relapsed. She started being a lot more sketchy and not as responsive to our relationship. Christmas came and went, put on a happy front for our families. I was hurting, a lot. I realized I was always focusing on her habits and what I could do to keep her clean. It stopped being healthy and started being painful. I had stayed up multiple nights when she was relapsing to make sure she didn't sneak away at night. I was blinded by my love for her. Beginning of January, I found her laptop out with her messenger open on her bed. I saw messages to her ex, her supplier, and a bunch of people asking for their money. After reading the messages, I could name 4 people she was running substances for. She had been sleeping with her ex to pay for pills, and she owed a lot of people money. She came home and I confronted her. Lots of yelling, lots of pain. I ended the relationship. I felt numb. She left for a couple days, but then came back and her name was still on the lease. I had to live with her for 5 months. Thankfully, our place was a 2-bedroom. She had multiple people over throughout the nights. I was scared, so I was locking my door at night and when I left the house. Money went missing if I left it out too long. Eventually, one of the guys she was hanging out with was wanted by the cops and they stopped by looking for my ex. She wasn't there and left for about a week. I was scared at this time. I took my dog to my grandparents and left him there. I was still in college and couldn't move or leave. Finally, she came back and I called the cops since they wanted her. They questioned her, questioned me, etc. I was taking chemistry at the time and they found my beaker and balance for weighing things and I had to explain to them. Thankfully, my ex told them that I wasn't involved and I didn't know anything. That was the last good thing she did for me. The cops searched her room and found evidence. They told her that they wouldn't arrest her, but that they would come back soon to ask more questions. As soon as they left, she packed a bag and left the back door and wouldn't respond as I asked her where she was going. That was the last time I saw her. Her parents came over, worried sick. I looked around the area and figured out she went to the gas station and had taken a cab. Even though I grew to despise what she was doing with her life, I never wanted any harm to come to her. I wanted her out of my life and for me to move on. Her parents packed up her stuff and that was it. It took me a couple of months to feel not worried or afraid. I finally started keeping my bedroom door open at night again. I brought my dog back and he's laying in bed next to me right now. I realize now how unhappy I was, even in their relationship. It's awful to say that I was in an emotionally cruel relationship since I had such good times with her, and a lot of memories. I can say that I've moved on. I feel way happier about life and I've started trying to date again. It was painful, depressing, and very bleak, but life moved on and I'm happier than I've ever been. If your spouse or significant other is using and it's a problem and you feel stuck, I urge you to leave. You can't fix them, and even though you love them so much and want to spend your life with them, they have to figure themselves out on their own. You're only enabling them by staying with them. If my ex reads this, long shot, but you never know. I don't hate you. I want you to live a free life and stay safe. I don't want to hear that you're in hospital or are in jail. We had a good life together, and I learned a lot about myself, but I'm glad we've gone separate ways, and as painful as it is to say, I hope I don't see you again. That part of our life is over and there are too many bridges burned. Good luck. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 10. I have 2 for my long and varied love life. The solution was easy, and in the case of the first, I wish I had done it months sooner. Restraining order. When you're a man, it's difficult to get anyone to take you seriously, especially, the police. Crazy ex stalked me. She was so obsessed that she skipped court-ordered supervised visits with her child from a previous relationship just to double back and check up on me, which was a big factor in her permanently losing all of her parental rights to that child. The main event at the end dragged on. For weeks, she disrupted my sleep, showing up at all hours, crying and banging on my door. Then she started breaking in as I slept, ran off into the night before the sheriff could arrive. Finally, one night I was nearly insane from sleep deprivation and head games or gaslighting. I screwed all of the doors and windows shut from the inside, did a sweep of the whole house to make sure I was alone, and she still got inside again and wrote crazy stuff on one of the walls in permanent magic marker from ceiling to floor and was chilling on the couch when I awoke late the next morning. Not long after that, she showed up and made a loud scene and broke a window in my door frame, trying to get into the house as I held the splintering door closed. Even though all of the neighbors spilled out of their houses and witnessed the whole thing with half a dozen 911 calls, she still got away again before the police arrived. Finally, there were witnesses and tangible damage, and I was able to get the police and DA to take me seriously and get an emergency protective order. Finally, the police dispatch ladies treated my calls with a modicum of respect instead of, "If she's not there anymore, there's nothing we can do. Okay, bye." This woman was so crazy determined to keep bothering me that she showed up in court to contest the restraining order, knowing she had warrants for her arrest. The judge listened to both of us, granted me the order for the maximum 3 years, then 2 deputies appeared behind her and led her out of the court in handcuffs. That was the last time I ever saw or heard from her. It was some time before I finally slept soundly the whole night. She was a great girlfriend for almost a year. Then her sister passed away and sent her into a spiral of misplaced guilt and suddenly unsuppressed memory. On a camping trip, she found a Christmas card in my glove box addressed to me and my ex, dated 2 months after we started dating, from someone I hadn't talked to since the year before. Said nothing. We had what seemed like a nice trip together. Snuggled up for a nap in her bed when we got home and said our goodbyes for the day. She became convinced that I was cheating. I think she started taking substances with her nephew, who stayed with her for a month around the funeral, given the level of crazy paranoia to follow. Started accusing me of all kinds of things, and shook out a sack of complaints, perceived slights, and imagined problems I'd allegedly committed throughout our relationship. I ignored her, resulting in 3 days of 75-to-1 ratio of crazy communication from her versus calm from me. Finally, she showed up at my shop around midnight to collect a watch she had gifted me, and wore once. She was nice at first, trying to apologize and reconcile. I simply placed the watch into her hands, let it fall to her feet when she refused to take it, politely told her goodnight and closed the door. Cue the Sharknado. She started screaming and ugly crying, that she wanted me to watch her end herself. When I continued to ignore her, she started breaking my collection of plants potted in expensive ceramic pots. The 911 operator could hear the crashes through 2 walls and closed doors. When she started targeting customers' cars and a glass front door, I put the phone down and moved to stop her before she damaged expensive things she really couldn't afford. I held her till the police arrived and took custody of her. A second unit arrived and that officer put handcuffs on me and started leading me to his car. At my request, he viewed the carnage she caused over by the door. One of the cops leading her to the first car spoke a number to him, at which point my cop visibly deflated and said, "Oh, you're the victim," and removed the cuffs. When the cops and I finally walked back to the scene and they saw the carnage exactly as described, dirt, broken plants, and pottery, and huge white diabetes pills sprinkled everywhere, each of them let out a long, "Damn." She ended up on a psychiatric hold and a few days of jail time. She sent me a few nasty emails trying to turn the entire incident around on me, and how she was the victim. I told her to stop contacting me because she had committed cruelty against me. She scoffed that this was impossible because I was the man and she was the woman. The judge didn't agree, apparently. Without having to set foot in court, he convicted her on 2 counts, placed her on 3 years probation with mandatory psychiatric counseling, applied the 3-year maximum protective or no contact order, and ordered her to pay restitution. At the victim impact hearing, the judge granted my full requested amount, which will take almost 3 years of monthly payments in her income. The kicker, who accompanied her to court that day? Her father. Story 11. I was in a seriously bad relationship with a woman who was incredibly jealous of every past relationship I was in. She owned her own home, so after dating for a bit of time before the crazy was let out, I moved in with her and took up a portion of the mortgage and bills. She made significantly more money than I did, but I felt as though I carried my weight quite a bit. Fights would begin because she would find a post on Facebook from years ago of me proclaiming love for another girl. She argued and would pour water on me if I were falling asleep after 8 hours of arguing. I was trapped because she would demand I paid rent and bills, so I had little money left, but would then kick me out. I've made dinners for her and her son, only for her in a fit of rage and threw all the food in the trash before anyone ate any of it. After kicking me out, she would be in the streets screaming at me to come back inside. Once I made a plan to escape and pawned my very expensive bicycle for $400 and made my way to a friend's place with my possessions. Thanks to an older version of Facebook Messenger, when I told her to go away, she was able to see from where the message was sent. She drove to that map location and drove around until she saw me in the window and walked in and started yelling at me in a stranger's house. My friend was a stranger to her. When I told her I was never coming back, she threatened to jump into oncoming traffic while her 10-year-old son sat in the car playing Minecraft. It gets worse for me, though. For my 30th birthday, she bought us tickets to Hawaii. I went back because I was stoked that she made such an effort to get us back on good terms. Afterwards, she started being a major obnoxious waffle again, so I took my tax return, got my own place, and ended it for good. She tried the I'm pregnant hand, even though it had been months since our last hookup. That fell through because, well, you can't fake a pregnancy. Then she sued me for $8,000 for not paying rent because I somehow owed her for the Hawaii trip. Mediation fell through because I told her to get off because I'm not giving her one of anything. Judge awarded her $2,300 because the trip seemed like a favor that could reasonably be asked to be paid back. I didn't fight it. I just told her that she'll have to get the money out of my estate or pry it from my cold fingers. I loved the look on her face when we eventually made it to court and I was able to bring my new girlfriend with me. I married that girlfriend and we have a happy family with our 11-month-old daughter. I still think of her and wish she would have a tragic accident. She nearly ruined my life. P.S. To all men in a relationship that brings you to the brink and terrible thoughts start creeping in, just know that male support is on the rise. No man should have to feel the way I felt. I didn't seek help that exists, but looking back, I wish I'd had. You're not alone in your cruelty. Cruel women are as monstrous as cruel men. Get out. Somehow, some way. Story 12. Jesus. I used to joke with friends that being married to my wife was like being married to Stalin. Any rebellion, no matter how small, was crushed ruthlessly and completely. It really wasn't a joke. She could not tolerate any disagreements and could hold a grudge until the end of time. Aside from occasionally throwing things on my head, usually a pot in the kitchen, the cruelty was emotional and very pointed. I'm not a tough guy. I'm a funny guy, a smart guy, and a nice guy. If I care about someone, I'll do anything for them. And I'm an idiot, because I never figured anyone would take advantage of that. The parents never fought in front of their kids. They did have fights, I was told later, but as far as we were concerned, adults acted like adults, and disagreements were handled in an almost debate-like manner. So to marry a woman who suddenly turns into an illogical, debate-free monster who used any cheap and dirty tricks to win an argument, and had to win every argument, put me at a disadvantage. We have 2 kids. I love them both dearly. I didn't want to hurt them or leave them with her. I felt completely trapped. Friday afternoons at work, I would sit at my lab bench and cry, knowing that for 2 days I was at her mercy. After the second child, there was no intimacy. She had what she wanted. I was not a husband. I was a father. She wasn't a wife. She was a mother. We're talking 9 years of no intimacy here. And I didn't really mind. There was no emotional connection. I walked around on eggshells, trying not to annoy her. It was difficult. And then I had an affair. A coworker. She made the first move and I responded. I couldn't believe I responded. I did so with the fervor of a man with thirst being offered a drink. And I rediscovered intimacy, with all its glories. It's fun. It's not just for procreation. My mind was blown. It changed me. I realized that I was still attractive. I was a smart, funny man that had a lot to offer a partner. The affair lasted for months and ended amicably, and sounds stupid, but I was changed, altered, woken up. A few months after the affair ended, I told my wife I wasn't happy, that I was thinking about leaving. She panicked. She suggested counseling, and I agreed. I agreed, knowing that things were done, but I wanted to go through the motions. And I did. She tried changing, tried to keep me. She was nicer, but still couldn't tolerate any disagreements. Still had to win every debate. And then in a counseling session where I knew she couldn't scream at me, I told her I wanted a divorce and I wouldn't change my mind. Things moved quickly after that. A month later, I had moved out. I got a lawyer, explained the situation. She was sympathetic and amazing. The settlement was definitely in my favor. That was 9 years ago. I reconnected with friends that she had forbidden me to see. They were all overjoyed to have me back. Started dating, even before the divorce was through. I've had several wonderful relationships, and I'm currently long-term with an amazing woman. She takes pains to tell me when I'm too apologetic, when I'm reverting to my old behavior. I look back at my old self, and he's a stranger. My kids came through like champions. I kept waiting for the shoe to drop, but they grew closer to each other and gave each other support. As they grew older, they came under similar pressure from my ex. I helped them understand what she was doing and how to deal with it. Never once have they questioned my decision to leave. They both have told me they understand why I left and that they don't blame me for it. Now, my daughter is studying to be an aerospace engineer and my son is sailing through high school and plans to become a business major. They both have my sense of humor. I couldn't be more proud. And she hasn't been in a relationship since I left. I'm guilty of taking no small pleasure in that. Life is good for me. I went through 12 years of hell, but came out with 2 amazing kids and a hard-earned sense of self-worth. I'm writing this at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm crying, remembering the past. Story 13. I don't know if this will ever get read, but I need to vent. I feel this was a sign. finding this right before falling asleep for the night, depressed. I've been unhappy, or should I say tempted, and having awful thoughts. I'm in this boat currently. Where do I begin? When I met her, she was the most amazing woman I had ever met. But over the years, I was convinced I was happy. We got engaged, we had a beautiful son together. Recently, I've been depressed. During the depression, I started unlocking the truth about our relationship, meaning I woke up. I'd always known she was a negative person, but never really grasped it. I'm one of the happiest, friendliest people you'll ever meet. I'm that guy who will talk to an old lonely lady who says hi for about an hour just to be nice and not leave her hanging if I feel she just needs that conversation for the day. Long story short, we were about to get married. I woke up to the truth that I was with a narcissist. We're talking textbook. I missed out on some great opportunities in life because of her. I even stopped being a part of my son's life. Previous child before I met her. I have 2 sons. Her tricks were always by using anger to shut me down. I hate confrontation, so therefore I would always drop the topic that I was trying to get off my chest about. This worked every time for her, including my child who I miss dearly. I had a couple of instances where I believed she had cheated. Again, I was shut down with her anger when I would try to talk about it and made me feel like I was crazy. I recently became depressed because I started to realize I was not happy with her. I also realized that it made no sense for someone as positive and happy as me to continue to let someone as negative and angry as her pull me down any longer. I even missed out on an opportunity to make it big in music because of her mind games that got me to back out. When she realized that my depression was derived from her and everything she had put me through, she did a complete 180 and changed. But the person she became was what I always saw deep inside of her, but only on her best hours. I won't even say her best days because those didn't exist. I had who I always wanted, but I knew when I would confront her about not being happy, she would do this. I knew it was coming, and I started to fall for it. I became depressed because my son was my world, the one I had with her. I became depressed because it hurt me so bad that I had to leave him to leave her. And I don't mean permanently, but I mean I had to leave the kissing and hugging him goodnight every night aspect. I ended up leaving. I'm far away from him and her and the place that could save my life. I'm made out to feel like I'm some monster who has abandoned his child. Mind games and all. Not to mention I'm seeing how psycho she actually is during all of this. But I'm also getting the super sweet side, the side I always wanted from her. She claims it's because I've hurt her and broken her and I was the best person she'd ever met, and that I should give her another chance. But the truth is, I was constantly giving her chances, begging her for affection, begging her to kiss me back like she meant it, begging her to get off her phone and just watch a movie with me after her son went to bed. But now it's my fault, even though I know it's not. She makes me feel like it is, and in turn, her mind games still work. I've become depressed because I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of the fear that I will go back to her. I'm tired of fearing that even if I don't go back, she'll make my life a living hell and make me feel guilty. On the bright side, I've gotten in contact with my child, whom she made me feel bad for wanting to get into contact with. I've got my baby back in my life. He's so amazing and just like me. I feel complete, even though I'm broken. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I've had such a terrible life, not by choice, but by the passing of my mother and all sorts of other stuff I had no control over. Does it get better? My life is currently ruined because of leaving her. Am I making the right choice? She won't stop with her sweetness now, which makes me feel like I'm crazy for leaving in the first place. She's begging for me back. So lost. I'm having anxiety attacks every day and depressive thoughts on top of it. I'm just tired. I'm just so tired of it all. I'm crying while I'm writing this, but talking to people and friends doesn't even help at this point because it's still in my head when I go to lay down every night. And the worst part, I'm the monster to our friends and her family for leaving my son and her, but I still talk to him on the phone every day. But to them, I've abandoned him. I'm just tired. Story 14. It's hard to just come out and say that I was in an emotionally cruel marriage, but that's what it was. My ex-wife cheated on me over the Christmas holiday in 2015. She told me she was visiting her ex-boyfriend. Little did I know they were doing more than just catching up for lost time. Damn me being trusting and all. After about a month of agonizing, barely looking at each other, going to therapy, I realized she wasn't trying to mend our broken relationship. I told her I wanted a divorce. After about a week hiding from her sisters, I came home one day. She had wiped the joint bank account nearly dry, took the cats, took the 4K TV, game consoles. Multiple days I'd come home from work wondering what was still left in the house. She took my daily driver one night too. That was extremely frustrating, not being able to get to work because of her greed. But let's fast forward today. I'm now divorced and have been single for a solid year. I tell people I'm working on myself, but in reality, I can't open up to anyone. I'm closer to my family now as a result of all this and know who my true friends are, but I have no desire to find another person to date. I can't give you any solid advice for what you should do with a person like my ex. She was inconsolable most of the time, and when she wasn't, she was hammered. And to be honest, when she was like that, I was kind of afraid of her. I'm no expert in handling people like that because honestly, I don't know if anyone can. I guess the best thing I can say is listen to your family and friends. They will tell you things at the time you may not want to hear or believe, but they love you and want the best for your life. Listen and know what you want in life and don't compromise. When is it time to give up on someone? I'm not usually one to air my personal business publicly, but lately, I've found myself struggling with this. I've been with my girlfriend for 2.5 years, and we've been through good times and bad. She was there for me when my brother ended it all. I honestly don't know what I would have done without her. Over the past year, things have been steadily going downhill for us. The most recent fight we had led to us not speaking or seeing each other for a month. I spent the entire month pleading my case and trying to get back to normal. To no avail. After 4 weeks, she suddenly started acting differently. It wasn't because she missed me. It wasn't because she wanted me. She needed something from me. She still acted indignant towards me even though I was willing to go out of my way to help her. I've been staying at a friend's house since we've been fighting, and against my better judgment, I drove to our place to help with what she asked. This was my biggest mistake. The signs that she was done were all there, and I didn't know what to expect. Our pet was sick, and I wanted to help take care of him. When I got into the house, I noticed something strange. Every single trash can in the house had been emptied. I know her well enough to know that this isn't normal behavior. She's lazy and doesn't usually take the trash out. I sat there for a while, contemplating whether or not I was going to dig through her trash. To be that crazy schmuck. Well, I broke. I opened the bag and found used protections. I could have spared myself a lot of pain had I just recognized and accepted the signs. She claimed up and down that she didn't even know we were still together, even though I can assure you that it had never been discussed and nothing I said or did even remotely hinted at that being the case. I guess what I'm trying to say is, trust your gut. Don't be like me because it hurts a whole hell of a lot worse than if you end things before damage like that is done. I'm pretty disgusted and disappointed in myself and have pretty much lost every last bit of my self-confidence as a result. If the signs are there, don't just walk away. Run and spare yourself the torment of something like this. Story 2. This may be controversial in nature from other responses I've seen. I don't really think you can ever be 100% sure when the time is right. I always thought about leaving my relationship, all of the stresses and lack of communication, the one-sidedness. Eventually, I explained all of my problems sternly, waiting to hear her just pull the same excuses and to turn it around on me. But that didn't happen. She started explaining all of these things and made everything make sense, so many things clicked that night and we became better than ever. If you truly believe you belong with someone, you need to keep working on fixing the problems together and make sure you explain your problems directly. You must also listen and take theirs into account, or else you will both live miserably. I was so ready to give up. With one final push, everything clicked and I've never been happier. I hope that all readers out there will get what they truly deserve and will live happily in life. It is possible. Just keep working. Story 3. My work colleague was excited when I mentioned I play D&D and he told me he can never find time or people to play. So I came up with a little session for him to come over to my apartment. When the day came, he completely flaked and slept in. And on the day we rescheduled, he called me like an hour before saying he couldn't make it. Last week he asked again about a game day, so I told him to come over for board games. About 2 hours beforehand, he told me something came up. I rescheduled for Thursday, and I don't know what I was expecting, but it was a no-call, no-show. I texted him once and he didn't respond, and I realized I'd wasted another evening waiting on this guy. Both days this week I spent time getting my apartment perfectly clean for visitors and had to forego visiting my girlfriend for the evening. I'm not doing this again. Story 4. I have a story for you. My ex. Her mother was a hoarder. She was mistreated mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. She had a lot of problems walking in, let's say. I was willing to do anything and everything in my power to help this person, and I tried as much as a 20-year-old college kid could. I strived to make sure all our time together was happy and she has the freedoms and choices she otherwise lacked. I dedicated most, if not all of my money to her. I got her to work and school and anywhere she wanted. I made sure to take her to pay all her bills, no matter if I just got enough work and was burnt out. I opened my home and she had too much on her own, and my mom even offered to let her live with us as she had been mistreated in her whole life. You only ever think of yourself. That same person said those same words to me. I will never forget or forgive that. She said those words 2 months before we broke up, but the relationship well and truly ended there. It is time to give up on someone when they shut you out completely and refuse all help. You cannot help people who won't accept it, and you cannot light yourself on fire to warm someone forever. Eventually, the fire burns out, and that burnout will affect you for a long, long time. Story 5. Interesting timing. My wife told me last night she's calling it quits. For a long time, I've had some suspicions about her not actually being where she said she was or with the people she said she was with. I didn't want it to be true, but it got too much. Anyway, it happened yesterday, and she said I'm helping an old friend renovate his apartment. It's so obvious that she's been cheating, but she denies it completely. I don't need to push that too far. I really feel it's over and I need to move on. I've been feeling that for a while, but didn't want it to be true. So she's now out telling her mother. Last night, she started telling me that I don't earn enough money for the lifestyle she wants. Classic deflection. And I think that'll be her story. I do okay, but she has a big taste for luxury things, and we really can't afford all the travel and pointless items she buys. Anyway, she turned it around on me instead of owning up to the cheating. So now I'm in our apartment, and what's really upsetting me is the cats. We have 2 beautiful cats, and I don't know where I'm going to go or what I'll do. I do most of the looking after our cats. She brought them because they're cute. I don't know if I'll be in a situation where I can take them with me and I'm not in my home country. I may return one day, so I'll be leaving them with her, and that upsets me more than anything. Sounds like someone's old friend is getting a very unexpected renovation to their personal life. Story 6. After my granddad passed away, he left everything to my dad, which didn't go down well with my aunt and uncle. You might think it's understandable, but they both have a history of generally being crappy people despite my granddad's best efforts, so it wasn't that surprising. My aunt spun my dad this tale of getting a divorce and heavily hinting that she needed a place to stay. My dad said that she can rent my grandparents' old place for him until she can get the money together for a mortgage and buy it outright. We never heard from her again after that. Fast forward 7 years to last September, and I got a phone call from my dad telling me that my cousin, this aunt's son, had passed away. He'd been going through some old newspapers and found his obituary in a local newspaper from May. They hadn't even bothered to contact us about it. I'd only ever met the guy 3 times at most, but I thought that we could have at least put hostilities aside for a death in the family. As far as I'm concerned, that whole side of the family can rot. Probably worth mentioning that my dad is the youngest of 3, my aunt and uncle being from my grandpa's first marriage. The wills were done such that if my gran would split things evenly between the 3, my granddad would leave it all to my dad. Apparently nearly got violent if my uncle hadn't been threatened with the cops when my gran passed away. He already has a record, so he left before it came to that. Story 7. I think I'm one of the only people approaching this from a friendship perspective versus a lover perspective. I had to cut these 2 friends off years ago. They were flagrant, reckless, stupid drinkers who simply refused to get their lives in order. I probably should have done it sooner, but I was duped. You see, the one brother, he got a girlfriend who really turned his life around. When he met her, he began dieting. He lost like 50 pounds, he quit smoking, quit drinking, and held down a job for the first time in his life. It really seemed like he turned a corner. And I remember thinking to myself, maybe I've been wrong all along. Maybe change is possible. Until she left him. She left him with his dumb brother who has literally nothing going for him at all. Provoked him in a frenzy. You don't have to listen to that witch. Screw her. You're a man. Drink whatever you want, Larry. The brother said to him. So he did. He acted like a schmuck. She called him out on his drinking and he screwed it up. Years later, he's been arrested some 7 to 8 times now. For multiple jobs, messed his credit score up, etc. After they broke up, I knew I had to just never talk to them again. They proved what I knew to be true all along. Some things never change, and people are no exception. I think that's my final answer. It's time to give up on someone when you aren't happy with who they are and when you realize they can't or won't change to be better. All you can do is walk away. Story 8. There are many factors. If you start to think about it, I'd say it is a warning sign because if you're content with your partner and the relationship, you wouldn't ask. However, the other factor would be if you guys are distant physically, mentally, and emotionally. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. A deal breaker could be when the other person is not willing to put in the amount of effort and time into you and or the relationship. I mean, let's be real. If they're not up for it, what's the point, right? Though this depends on the people involved and their views in the relationship. Also, their VAB. Values, attitudes, and beliefs. If it doesn't match with yours or if you guys are not willing to work with it, then it's not going to end well for the both of you. If the relationship is toxic, you should break it off. These are just a few reasons for many others. Hope it helps. Good luck. Story 9. I don't know. Too many good relationships end because they just think, I'm not happy, and it ends there. If it's a long-lasting relationship, you have to ask, what's wrong or how did it get here? You shouldn't just give up immediately because you're unhappy. Yeah, sometimes it's the best if it's analyzed and nothing is working, but the parties involved have to take it upon themselves if they love each other. What's wrong? A lot of the time, it's the lack of communication. Sometimes life gets a bit busy and you need a breather, but a lot of marriage counseling stresses communication. Of course, there are other examples that do just end it here because of unhappiness, but you have to ask yourself why it got that way in the first place, and not give up at the first sight of a problem. Story 10. I have a 21-year-old living in my basement suite. He's a good guy, but suffers from a few different mental illnesses. Since he was my only renter for quite a while, nice kid, I felt bad for his living arrangements, was not allowed to move in with his parents. I charged only $400 a month, everything included. He lived off social assistance and would have months he could only pay partial rent. I told him it was fine, he could pay me back in time. I tried not to enable him, but cut him some slack. I offered to help him get his license, make a resume, and drop off resumes. I was able to get him a job making $100,000 a year if he stopped smoking for a month to pass a pre-employment test. No luck. Last week, my upstairs tenants complained about the substance use and unexpected visitors arriving at night and causing a scene, so we had to serve an eviction notice. I felt horrible for him, but then his mom messaged me with a very passive-aggressive text about how, am I really classy for evicting her son? I did not respond and blocked the number. I wasn't even the one who evicted him. Property management did because they had a financial obligation for themselves. Point being, I don't mind putting in an effort to help, but screw putting in this much effort. Passive-aggressive texts? Sound like she's learned a thing or two from her son. Story 11. I went through several weeks thinking about this recently. Of course, I wanted it to work out more than anything, but no matter how much we wanted it, it wouldn't have worked out. We just simply aren't compatible. Granted, it may have been me and the lack of communication on my end, but after heated discussions, on and off breaks, it didn't feel like there was a we, but you and me on different sides. The uncertainty of these feelings was something I wanted to make sure of. At times, I would feel no love from him, and I'm 100% regret I didn't make him feel more loved by me, but at other times, when he did make me feel loved, I'd feel at home. I really made my decision was when it really hit me, when it felt as if I was suffocating in the relationship, mildly depressed, enjoying other people's companies more than his, thinking about how much I needed to distance myself to keep myself afloat, but the words of his love kept pulling me back in. An endless emotional and mental roller coaster that I was riding by myself, I needed to get off of. I was by far the most selfish person right up until the end. But I believe that he's better off with someone else and give him the love that I couldn't give him in the last couple of months and could never fulfill in the future. Yeah, it sucks. If I could, I would run into his arms. That's all I ever wanted. But as it turns out to be as it is, we've done all we can. I'll do my best to carry on with my life, and I wish him well. If there's anything I wanted to do differently, it was to tell him earlier and tell him all I needed, listen to what he wanted for the aftermath. Story 12. When you feel like you need to escape, when you begin to plan how to get out, when if they won't let you leave, you wish you could end in a car accident or something just so it can be over, when you realize they were with you because you were around and they fear being alone, so you're what was better than being alone, when you feel that them not letting you go is actually worse than passing away, when you spend all your waking hours, even when you feel like crap or are sick, away from home because you don't want to be where they are, when you tell the couples counselor over and over you want out, but she says you don't really mean that, you do. You do. And the only dreams you have anymore at night are of you in a black lake. It's dark at night and you're trying to swim to the shore, but you're too tired. So you lift your arms up and sink into the darkness until you wake up suddenly, heart racing, sweating, and you get out of bed and read a book because you can't take more than one sleeping pill each night. So now you're up. When you first say to yourself, I want out. Story 13. Sometimes, it's no one's fault. Some people are not compatible, and while some things about them may be great, it will never work out in the end. There are roughly 5 billion people on the earth, so, just as they say, there's someone for everyone. There are just as likely, even more so, really, a lot of people are fundamentally not right for everyone. I recommend sleeping on it, but don't sleep on it forever. If you feel you're not happy, in the long run, you will be happier if you don't stay in that situation. Story 14. If you know someone that's into really hard substance and continues to steal and lie from you for their substance habit, it's time to give up on them. My brother got into it at 18 years old, and I watched my parents, divorced, both try to take him in at different times to try and fix him. By doing this, they enabled his behavior and he lied and stole from them to support his habit. It took 4 years before they finally let go and couldn't do it anymore. My brother did not change for another 2 years until he truly hit rock bottom and was living on the streets struggling to survive. Doing other stuff because he couldn't afford it anymore and just living the crappiest of human existences. At that point, he chose to change. He chose to quit because no one else could make him do it. He had to dig deep in his soul and decide if this was the short, miserable life he wanted to live. He went to the local Salvation Army rehab, had been kicked out of 2 times before, and told them he was ready. They took him in and he did whatever he had to do to stop, believed in some higher power for himself, and worked his back off to keep himself busy and stay clean. I'm happy to say my brother is 3 years clean now, getting an education in fixing air conditioning and working a full-time job for a local AC company. He just bought his first truck and posts pics all the time of his trips up north, camping and off-roading and just being a healthy, happy human being. He still struggles with the weight of his past. He has a crime, and my dad and a nice pro bono lawyer are working to get that expunged from his record, but compared to before, he's doing amazing. I couldn't be more proud of him. I love my bro so much, and I spent so many nights crying, wondering if he was still even alive out there, but I learned, just from seeing my parents struggle with this, that if someone is heavily used like that, only they can make the change because they want to change. Story 15. Depends on the person. If it's a friend or a romantic relationship, as soon as you realize you want to change them, that means you wish they were someone else, so you might as well go find someone else. If it's a close relative like a parent or a child, you should care for them unless they're repeatedly cruel towards you on purpose. A user might steal from you, but they're not doing it to hurt you. They're doing it to feed their habits. Be kind and drag them back to rehab. A cruel person might steal from you because they just want the thing and don't care how you feel. Kick their back to the curb. Story 16. So it kind of depends on the nature and context of the relationship, how he used to be and how much work you're willing to put in. I mean, if this is a marriage you're talking about, before giving up on it, I would recommend reading or listening to a whole lot of Esther Perel's work before deciding that it can be saved, unless you're experiencing outright cruelty, in which case, run. Do not walk, but run away and be safe. If this is a long-term dating relationship, that gets tough. How much do you feel like it could be rectified? If it's short-term, well, the fact that you're asking probably does suggest at least as leaning in one direction as others have pointed out. However, with that said, the fact you're asking instead of leaving does show that there's a part of you that isn't sure. But ultimately, if it is more than a case of losing the initial electricity and moving into a more stable or long-term companionship, the time is when you feel it is right. When you feel the relationship can't move forward, and when you feel the time is sensitive and appropriate to tell them which nobody else can tell for you, no matter how much they might like to be able to give you a magic wand or 8-ball with the answer. Story 17. I had this friend who I really cared for. He met this woman. The woman and I became best friends. Things were great. And then he hit her. I immediately made it super clear he was no longer welcome in my home or my life. It took her over a year to leave him. She and I are still best friends and are really close. She lived with me for over 6 months after she left him because he knew I'd call the cops and my lawyer on him if he dared show up. Last I heard, he found a new victim and she's keeping him in beer and free lodging for horrible intimacy and random physical cruelty. I hope he goes out alone and on fire. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. December 26, 2011. The day after Christmas. My brothers and I got an Xbox 360 with Halo Reach. We met a kid on there, and we both liked each other. Then we became friends. Fast forward to January 2017. We met other friends, and now it's a group of 4 people. T, other friend, and L, 4-year friend, got mad at each other. L keeps trying to instigate a fight, and then T leaves because he's not going to play. L gets mad at M, other friend, and me, and starts screaming, not exaggerating, he was actually screaming, at us saying we don't care about him. Brought me to tears before I said, "You know what? I'm done." I left the group chat and so did M. We unfriended him and tried not to think about it. About 10 minutes later, he starts spamming me, saying he's sorry. I should also say that the day before this happened, he had a serious, depressing argument. Sort of. Like saying, "You guys don't like me and never did." We were pretty worried for him and got a hold of his mother. And by that, I mean I knew his last name and contacted her via Facebook. So fast forward to about March. Em got back together with Al because she didn't have a real-life buddy. I decided to give him another chance. I say another because stuff like this happened before, but not as big. We said that if it happened again, we're actually done. Now the final act. January 2018. M, T, my brother, and I were playing PUBG. He finished a match, and A, brother, notices that L unfriended him on Discord. We all check, and it's the same for T and me, except for M. M starts trying to talk to him, and it's back and forth as the same type of argument. It goes on for a bit, and we decided just not to deal with that anymore because we now all realize he's doing it for attention. So last month, Al tried to get in contact with M. Al said he's sorry and if we could be friends again. and immediately turns around and says that he should just go to make us happy. We all said it's more fishing for attention, so Em said we've all moved on and so should he. The 4 years of friendship is gone. I do feel better after it, and to be honest, I should have dropped the relationship long ago. But there were fun times, but it's gone now. Story 19. When a friend tells you that the gas to his apartment is going to be shut off next week because he hasn't paid his gas bill, but he somehow comes up with $200 a month to pay for a storage unit. When he tells you that not having gas isn't a big deal because it's summer now, he can cook an electric hot plate and he doesn't mind cold showers. When he tells you that he can't find a steady job but will spend an entire Saturday doing volunteer work for the public school system. Story 20. I just did this with a friendship a month or two ago. Basically, he crossed the same boundary too many times after I asked him not to, and told him why and how much it bothered me. And I realized he really didn't give a crap about me, but I'd been putting all this time and effort into being there for him while he struggled. So basically, if they won't respect your very clearly set boundaries. Also, it got to the point where I realized I was unhappy when we would interact. The periods where we didn't talk were better and my life kept moving forward. When we would talk, I'd get into this anxious tailspin trying to support him because he really needed it. And that's what friends are for. Anytime I was having a tough time, though, he was either nowhere to be found or showed up and said, "Well, I'm having an even bigger crisis, so we need to be focusing on that." They got old. Story 21. I think you can distance yourself from people who are exhibiting toxic behavior as appropriate, but I'm always ready to give someone a second chance if they seem to have made changes. I will never trust someone as much the second or third time around, obviously, but it's important to encourage good behavior and show people that those changes are worth making. As for romantic relationships, I will bail at the first sign of trouble and never look back. I don't need to be somebody's catalyst for their illness. Better things to do. Story 22. I recently received this book this past Christmas, titled Brave Enough by Cheryl Strayed. I have toxic family members or friends that I cut out of my life but felt terrible for doing so. I saw this quote and it's changed my whole outlook on when to say enough is enough with anyone. Hopefully, it will help you and whoever else is in this dilemma. People will try to tell you otherwise, but boundaries have nothing to do with whether you love someone or not. They're not judgments, punishments, or betrayals. They are a purely peaceable thing. The basic principles you identify for yourself that define the behaviors that you will tolerate from others, as well as the responses you will have to those behaviors. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, and they teach you how to respect yourself. Story 23. For a while, I've kinda accepted that my crumbling relationship is beyond repair now, and reading this thread just affirms my thoughts that it's time to just give up and let go. But I just don't know how we're going to break it to our circle of friends or how to act around them if we do. For now, we've both just been pretending really hard in front of everyone. It's both tiring and heart-wrenching, especially when everyone leaves and the air just tenses. Our smiles drop and another fight starts to slowly brew in the silence. Story 24. Man, I wish a friend of mine would read this thread. It was with a guy for 2-ish years, absolutely in love with him, even though she has major issues with some things. Like how he's almost 40 and just a bartender. Out of the blue, he tells her he's sick of being with her and misses the hunt. Shatters her life. She becomes useless for 4 months, can't get out of bed, massive depression, goes on meds, afraid she'll lose her corporate job, etc. Only, she lets him keep living with her, since he pays her $500 a month as rent and she kinda needs it. He lies out of his bag, says he never meant it, blah blah. Only anytime he gets hammered, he tells her how much he hates her and the truth comes out. 6 months to a year later, we find absolute proof he's cheating on her. Some of her friends suspected it, but I found proof they're sitting right there. She confronts him. He admits it. There's now at least 3 different women we know of, and I'm 100% sure there are more. Still doesn't kick him out. One of the women he cheated with is his sister's best friend. My friend won't tell that fact to his family. She's constantly protecting him, even though he destroyed her world and constantly disrespecting her. His mother wrote my friend a note saying she's sorry she never raised her son that way once he admitted he cheated, but never said with who. My friend is back with him. There's absolutely nothing I can do. She won't listen to reason. She won't listen to any of her friends' advice. We went from talking every single day to over 2 months of zero interaction because I can't stand to hear about the screw-up and how she's basically ruining her life. Multiple friends of hers tried to be supportive and have now completely given up. It's depressing to witness. She's better than this. Story 25. One thing that tipped me off in my last relationship was when I noticed that I went from, "Yay, I got a message from her," to, "Crap, she's messaging me again." We were together for 6 years and the relationship was spiraling down for a while. When talking to her, it changed from excitement to annoyance. It was a very strong signal to break things up. We didn't message each other all that much, so it wasn't a case of having other things to do or something like that. We simply fell out of love. Story 26. I was with someone that made me feel complete. We were always together and deeply in love, but she had a lot of emotional issues, including dependency. She struggled with mental health and it dragged me down too. After we were forced apart by other circumstances, I realized it was much better for both of us. Our lives recovered and we found other people who've changed since we've been apart, mostly for the better. A few months ago, we started talking again and all those feelings came back. I was this close to leaving my loving girlfriend and flying cross country to be with the ex. I was cheating on my girlfriend emotionally. I realized that me and this ex were incapable of saying no to each other and that, despite our feelings for one another, our relationship would have just dragged us back to where we were before. Sometimes, you have to cut someone you love more than anything out of your life, for both of your benefits. That is the single hardest thing I've ever done. Story 27. I recently gave up on someone. I was dating this woman. She was great and wonderful. We met in May of last year and things were hot and heavy until August. Then she explained that there were things in her personal life that popped up in the fall. We got together once in September, and then it became a series of she was only free on the days when I was out of town or in call. And every time I asked her out, something else was up or she couldn't go. On my birthday, she picked up extra shifts, knowing that I had pulled some strings to make it just us at her request. She asked me this week if we were dating other people. I told her, that question assumes we're dating. We haven't seen each other in 7 months, and it's a special day anymore when I get more than 2 texts from you. A year ago, I would not have assumed it would have ended this way. Story 28. It depends on the depth of the relationship. Give up should not mean alienating, emotionally reacting, or burning the bridge to the ground with someone. People who do this are generally very emotionally immature, and the recoil from this kind of behavior is strong. As a general life rule, never burn it to the ground. Ever. Unless you absolutely have to. Don't lie or play games, just tell the truth and be open about your values. If they're not on board with any kind of compromise, tell them you're out. If they keep contacting you, gradually start taking longer and longer to reply. If they don't get the message by then, blocking is probably your best option. It can be a very liberating thing to cut ties with someone that has different values than you, but just be smart about it and be calm and patient. Story 29. Depends. This is a very open-ended question without context. Usually situational. If the party of concern is knowingly making bad choices, that is my cue to back away. For some, they are born to fail and pass away. Others hit rock bottom and turn their lives around, while others are semi-stupid and never seem to be any good at choices. But in order to help them, we need to be very aware of clues to look for in others so we understand the nature of what we're dealing with. Otherwise, consider yourself unqualified to handle anything but simple scraps from life they may get, such as running out of gas. Stuff like that. Story 30. I might be a little late here. When someone repeatedly shows you that they don't care, give up. If they don't make time to see you, if they don't respond to messages, if they don't do little things just because they thought about you, give up. Even the busiest people make time for people they really, truly care about. Those who use "I'm too busy" as an excuse are really just saying that they list you as a very low priority in their life. Give up on them. There will be others who rank you as a high priority, and they're the ones you should be putting your time and effort into. Story 31. When your phone rings and seeing their name on the screen fills you with a sense of dread. When you try to find any excuse not to spend time with them. When you realize you've been listening to them venting about all their problems, but they haven't asked you how you're doing in months. I experienced this not in a relationship, but with a toxic friendship. She was going through yet another breakup while I was trying to deal with my dad's sudden passing, and finally it just got to be too much for me to handle. Story 32. After 5 years with my boyfriend, I've finally given up. He drinks pretty much every day and misses work a lot because of it. He also lied about paying rent when he didn't and made us hide from the landlord. I paid bills and bought everything inside the house while he paid our rent. I gave up after numerous times of giving him the ultimatum of me or drink. It would be great for a few days and then back on it after going away for a make-or-break weekend. And he had to buy drinks for the journey up, yet he was the driver. I drove after he started to drink. I lost friends and my sanity by being in that relationship. I'm starting to become happy again, although repairing relationships with friends and family, etc., has been challenging. I've had to move back in with my parents, but even after 3 weeks, I'm already feeling happy and positive. I've driveled on a bit, but the moral of the story is to stop giving so many chances. Some people just do not change. No matter how much they say they love you and how many times they put on the waterworks, I wasted 3 out of the 5 years to his drinking and other stuff. I never want to feel as helpless and depressed again as I did being with him. Story 33. For me, it was when I realized that I was never truly going to be able to live my life as long as I kept him in it. I couldn't focus at work because I was worried about whether I was going to come home to him mean and intoxicated. was never going to be able to travel or go out to eat or buy new clothes because all my money was supporting him and making sure his kids had enough. I was always going to have to keep all cash and cards away from him so he couldn't steal them and go get intoxicated. It took hitting that point to realize that he wasn't the man I fell in love with anymore, and I couldn't throw away my life for him. Story 34. A guy I considered my best friend for about 10 years. Friend dumped me twice. Both times were because he was dating a girl who didn't like me. The third time it was that I started dating a girl that apparently he'd been obsessed with, and blamed me for his lack of progress with her despite never mentioning it to me and never making anything close to a move on her. Anyway, there were tons of other red flags. I should have given up on him sooner, but I guess I always hoped he'd sort his crap out. I haven't heard from him for years, but from what I hear, he's the same pathetic loser he's always been, bumping between jobs and trying desperately to bolster his rock-bottom self-esteem via continuing to chase girls who continue to lose interest in him as soon as they realize how messed his life is. What can I say? He's one of the only people who can constantly crack me up, and good humor gets you a long way with me. Story 35. A long time ago, I identified as polyamorous. I met this girl in her 20s. I was in my 30s. We were both married, I think, but fell in love. It was pretty cool for a long time. I noticed she and her hubby always did like to smoke and drink and try various substances. Over the years, we kind of drifted apart but stayed friends. Her marriage declined over time, and eventually, her husband left her. Her mom was supporting her, and the straw that broke the camel's back was the last time I saw her, she had picked places raw on her face, which I assumed meant she'd started doing substance. It was just more than I wanted to handle. I broke off contact with her. Story 36. On the reverse of what a lot of the comments here say, it's time when they care about you a lot more than you care about them, and you sincerely believe you will match that care. It's okay to admit that you care about someone, but not in the same way or with the same intensity as they do. Could be romantic or otherwise. It's better in the long run to be honest about not being able to live up to what they want from you. And if you really care about a person, don't string them along. Introspection is important whether you think you're the giver or the taker. In those simple terms, if you recognize that you're never going to be able to give what they need from you, it's okay to take a step back, or a few steps, or many. It takes time and honest self-reflection to know when that is, and saying, "you love me too much" can easily sound like a cop-out. But sometimes it's true. Letting someone be way more into you than you are them can be flattering, but it's unkind. And the flattering aspects can wear off and turn into demand and resentment on both sides before you know it. Story 37. Dealing with this right now, actually. Friend, also an ex, just cut me out of her life seemingly at random. Happened a few weeks ago. We were talking on a daily basis. We would do activities usually once a week or more. She visited me at work on a regular basis, and we would still occasionally text inappropriately. One day she stopped by my work. We chatted and she went home, started discussing her cats, as they were recently spayed, and out of nowhere, she tells me we shouldn't be friends any longer, and that I should screw off. Still trying to piece it all together, and yeah, it sucks. Just lost someone I was deeply attached to for about 5 years. Story 38. When they've shown no attempt or even interest to change and have become an active threat to your family. My half-brother was like this. He became a user and couldn't keep a job, so he lived with his mother. His daughter, my niece, was a sweet girl, and eventually he couldn't afford to send her to school. We found out belatedly that he hadn't enrolled her, and that all the gifts we were sending her, laptops, etc., he sold just to fund his habit. He eventually got a stroke, which left him in adult diapers for about a year. His mom couldn't afford to take care of him, and he had stolen so much of her money that she couldn't stand him anymore. So my father took him in. Kept trying to get him jobs, but he couldn't last for more than a week. Instead, he would create elaborate lies about why he wasn't going to work. Like, for example, the company was letting him be on break for a month. His lies were never the least bit believable, but he never stopped telling them. He continued to steal from everyone at home, including my father, me, and his own daughter. He would even steal from my father's personal nurse. My father funded my half-brother's daughter's education, but my half-brother would rummage through her pocket change while she wasn't in her room. Things started going missing. Gadgets, phones, etc. would disappear, and he would lie every single time. Eventually, I caught him red-handed, in the middle of pulling out a bill from my wallet in my room. He was still trying to make excuses, as if he could talk his way out of it. Soon after that, my father told him he had to get the hell out. My half-brother made another elaborate lie about how he'd been planning to move out anyway, so he left. Apparently now he just wanders the streets as a homeless person, but even his own daughter is happier now and thinks he deserves that fate after everything he's done. His daughter's in college now, by the way, about to graduate. Story 39. So I have a different situation. My relationship with a girl ended a year ago, and I can't let her go to save my life. I'm upset every day. My head aches, I can't get her out of my head. I'm fully aware of it, though. I know I need to get over her and that this isn't healthy, but I have no idea how to do it. I've been in therapy for 6 months, and I thought I was getting better. But the last month in general, and the last few days in particular, feel the same as the first few weeks. I really need any help or advice I can take because I hate this. It's at the point where I'm trying to convince myself going back to try to fix everything would be easier than this, even though that's not an option. What was something fairly small that made you feel betrayed by your significant other? We were going through airport security together. She went first, and when she was being screened, pointed at me and said, "Make sure you check my boyfriend. He always has weapons." As a joke, and then I got detained for a search and questioning and almost missed the flight. And no, I didn't have any weapons or other stuff on me. Then she got mad at me for almost missing our flight. Like, what did you think would happen here, Emily? She sounds like an idiot. Who jokes with airport security? Story 2. The most extreme case I know of is my dad and the girlfriend he had before my mom came along. He and the girlfriend were high school sweethearts and had been together for 3 years. They both wanted to see Back to the Future too, a movie that had been highly anticipated for years. They had a family emergency the day it came out, so they agreed to see it the following Monday. They found out from friends she went to see it with a guy friend my dad never really liked. He was so hurt, and she was so unapologetic. Her attitude was, "I'll go see it with you too, why did I have to wait?" Even though they'd agreed to see it together, he told her they needed to take a break. He fully meant for it to be temporary, just until he cooled off, but then he met my mom when he went to see the movie by himself, and he never looked back. He does feel a bit guilty, though, because his ex was pretty devastated when she found out he'd met someone else and wanted to end things for good. Story 3. It's small, but one year we were both working 15 to 18-hour days, but had Thanksgiving off. I planned the menu. He didn't give input. I ordered the ingredients online during my lunch break to pick up after work because I didn't have time to shop. I woke up early, made everything, cleaned the dishes in the kitchen after. All he did was complain. I made too much. I had too much wine. 3 glasses over 7 hours. After all that work and not even a compliment or a thank you? Yeah, we divorced. That was our last Thanksgiving together. Story 4. I had recently married my now ex-wife. We were moving overseas for a few years after I finished up some training for the Air Force. She wanted to visit some family several states away, so I told her to do that while I finished the training and we'd meet up afterwards. My father's birthday was during this period. I got him a card, signed it, and then mailed it to her for her to sign and send it to him. Pre-dressed, postage paid, and all she had to do was sign and drop it in the mail. I finished training, fly out to meet her, and guess what's laying in the floorboard of her car on the passenger side? Story 5. I had a friend who dumped his girlfriend when he overheard her making fun of his, admittedly, rather nerdy, sister to her friends. He said it wasn't just about loyalty to his sis. It was about not wanting to be with someone who has to put others down to feel better about herself. I always thought it was admirable. Bruh, that's so messed up. He did the right thing. Story 6. My husband and friends finally talked me into taking a break and going on a hiking weekend with the girls during a long, busy stretch of working overtime and being caregiver to my mom in long-term care and my aunt in palliative care. I went, but touched base with my husband briefly each of the 3 days. I even talked to him the last day to say that we were considering an extra hike that would make us late coming home. Several hours after I got home late and was in bed, around 11 p.m., he thought to tell me that my aunt's doctor had phoned just after I had left on the Friday to say the end was near. I was stunned that he hadn't told me earlier. I would have come or at least called the doctor. Because it was so late and I knew there would only be one staff member on the floor, I decided to wait and call in the morning. Yes, she passed away before then. Sure, he just forgot to tell me about a call, but after 94 years on this earth, my aunt passed away alone. Story 7. My girlfriend knew that her sister was cheating on her boyfriend. She had been cheating for at least 6 months. Meanwhile, I had been reassuring this dude, the sister's boyfriend, that he was being paranoid and his girlfriend was completely devoted to him. At least that's the impression I got from her. My girlfriend knew I was reassuring this dude and fully approved of it. When I found out her sister was cheating, my girlfriend knew her sister was cheating, had lied about it, and had allowed me to mislead this guy. I was very hurt. She said it wasn't her place to tell, and frankly, it wasn't her business or my business. I had to break up with her. I couldn't be with someone who felt that comfortable with infidelity within a relationship. She thought I was overreacting to something that had nothing to do with us. I don't know. Maybe I was. All I know is that I didn't feel comfortable with her anymore. Story 8. When I was married about 5 years in and far from home, I got to work and my car battery went out. I called my husband at the time because I needed help. I needed help because I had no idea how to replace the battery and needed a ride to go buy a new one. It still confuses me to this day. He said, I'm off work, but I'm heading out to go hunting. Go have your work friends help you. And he refused to come help me. I never felt so alone and worthless. Like, if my mom called my dad, he'd be there in minutes. If I was home, I could have called buddies in different counties even, and they'd be there to help me. But he absolutely refused to come help. It was the beginning of the time where if I had any self-esteem, I should have clearly seen the signs of continued cruelty and divorced him. Story 9. My ex-husband would tell me he was going to plan a date for us after I would beg him to take on the mental load of planning something nice for me rather than me doing it for him every time. He would talk up the date he was planning for days. When the day would come and we're getting ready to get in the car, he would say, "Where do you want to eat?" Not only did he not plan a date ahead of time, but then he put the mental load of figuring it out on me right as we were leaving. And after we would go back and forth on where to eat as we were driving, there he would suggest every restaurant we drove past instead of where we chose to go. It was insanely frustrating. Story 10. My wife made a snide remark about my niece checking herself into the mental ward at the hospital because she could feel an episode coming on and didn't feel like she should be unsupervised at the time. My wife also suffers with mental health issues and, I thought she would understand this kind of stuff. I drove my niece to the hospital and walked her in myself and made sure she got checked in okay. Story 11. I spent our entire marriage managing him, making his appointments, getting him places on time, making sure thank you notes were written and bills were paid, cleaning the house, caring for the baby, doing the dishes, reminding him to brush his teeth, and so on. I finally got burned out and divorced him. A couple of years later, when discussing an autism screening, he has every sign of autism. He said, I'm just not going to get tested since it has no adverse effect on my life so far. The divorce meant nothing. Running me into the ground meant nothing. Happy ending, I'm married to a man who manages himself. The kid's 16 and has at least ADHD, if not autism, and I'm teaching him good habits, like cleaning and brushing his teeth. Story 12. We had a first date in the super cute pub in a super cute town. Then, over the next few years, that pub was our spot. When we got married, we had our wedding reception there. Several years later, living several hours away from that town, my husband tells me he's going to go stay with his friend in that town because the pub is shutting down and they're going to have one last hurrah. I already had plans that weekend I couldn't get out of, but I was never invited. My husband is usually super considerate, so I was pretty taken aback and still feel hurt about it. Story 13. Not me, but my wife. The guy she was with before me was buddy-buddy with her parents to the point he wasn't always on her team. Her parents liked to pick on her, and he would actually join in on it at times and join the laughing. Even he wouldn't stick up for her. She tells me she still remembers fondly the first time her stepdad made some jab. I don't remember the specifics. Saying something like, "Oh, she must do that all the time. Oh, dark spowls, barrel rolls." And my response was, "No, she's never done that. I only play for one team, my wife's team." Story 14. I knew a guy who ended an engagement because he found out his brother had kissed his fiancée and she hadn't told him. She told him nothing happened. She pushed him away. It never happened again. But she didn't tell him because she didn't want to ruin his relationship with his brother. He believed her, but he said he couldn't trust her. I never really agreed with that decision because I totally got where she was coming from when she didn't tell him. They were a good couple, too. It was sad to see them part ways. Story 15. He would go to the grocery together and he would immediately split away from me, get his items, check out, and then wait after the register or outside the building for me to finish. I can't explain it, but that really angered me off. My current boyfriend walks through all the aisles with me, and I really appreciate the extra company and time with him. It makes a mundane task much more enjoyable. Story 16. My boyfriend and I had a dog who had problems and needed surgery. There was a small chance it could have made her fecally incontinent. My boyfriend said, "We'll obviously have to put her down if that happens." She had surgery, came home and crapped herself. I called him at work, sobbing and panicked. When he came home that night, he screamed at me for bothering him at work. It made me feel so unsupported and set aside. The dog was fine. She and I moved out and lived many more happy years together. Story 17. I'll often make fun of myself for the sake of making my wife laugh. We have this running joke that I'm a girly man because I cry during movies and I enjoy musicals, etc. It's all fun and games when we joke about this at home, but one time we were out with our friends and she referred to me as a princess in front of them. Maybe I'm being insecure. It's never a problem when we joke at home, but for some reason it felt insulting in front of her friends. I laughed it off in the moment, but I pulled her aside later and told her I didn't appreciate being made fun of publicly like that. I guess it's because I felt this was our little inside joke and I was being vulnerable for the sake of making her laugh. But when everyone is in on the joke, it feels like I'm not making people laugh anymore. They're just laughing at me. Story 18. When my ex apartment sat for me, I told him not to invite anyone over without my permission. He invited his best friend over and lied about it. I said, if I asked best friend, what would she say? Then I texted her asking for her to lie to me. She came over literally just to bake a dessert. I would have been annoyed that he crossed a boundary, but it bothered me even more that he would go so far as to get his friends to lie to me. It was so upsetting to see that they'd be willing to do it. Story 19. My ex lied about going to a garage sale. I'd been really trying to find things for us to do together because we were obviously disconnected at that point and there was a big estate sale. I told him we ought to go after work and he agreed. He then said he had to work late. When he got home, he didn't feel like going, but later after he started his nightly drinking, admitted he hadn't worked late. He'd gone without me and picked up some tools and just didn't want to go back. That was about a week before I made the decision to divorce. It definitely wasn't the only reason, but one of many. Story 20. Luckily, I find the story hilarious, but I'll never let my husband forget it. We were playing Mario Party Superstars with two friends and we were playing the Spaceland map. My husband used double dice to intentionally run through the countdown in the center space so that the laser hit me and I lost all my coins. He swears he thought the countdown had one extra number. He bought me dinner that night. Story 21. I had been telling my boyfriend for months that my absolute dream day was going stargazing. More than anything, I wanted to go out and see the stars at a night sky preservation area. I'd go out to the marina near us with a buddy and I'd beg said buddy to let us stay a few minutes more so I could look at the sky a little longer. It got to the point that my family and friends joked that I should be an astronaut because I loved looking at the constellations so much. One of my dream jobs is to teach astronomy at a school. I'm studying to be a teacher. My boyfriend asked what my dream date was by a close friend of ours. He said something along the lines of a picnic in the morning and walking around. No, man, that's not my dream date. That's just something I might do in my spare time, and even then, it's still kind of boring. I still hurt when I think about that, to be honest. No idea how he just didn't listen for years on that. Story 22. The one thing that got me good was that she was insistent in sharing her favorite music or YouTube videos or interests with me, and I would always watch and try to get interested so we can enjoy them together. But whenever I tried to share something with her, she would never look in my direction and make fun of me for liking things I liked. The thing was, this was my first girlfriend and I just assumed this is normal, so I accidentally just stopped sharing anything I'm interested in with all my future relationships by mistake, because I thought my interests were weird and they would judge me. Oops. Story 23. After the birth of my first child, she had a round of colic for 2 weeks, and my ex and I were alternating the night shift. I would take care of her during the days, and every other night he would do the night feedings. One time I was up from 5 a.m. until 5 p.m. the next day. So, I had a crying baby for 36 hours with no sleep, and I hadn't eaten much all day. I was so exhausted and frustrated with the crying, and I asked my ex to go get us pizza. The pizza place was 5 minutes away, so I expected him to be back in 20 minutes. And then I was looking forward to sleeping after that. He didn't return for over an hour, so I called him what the hell? And he had eaten his portions of the pizza there at the shop and then drove over to his friend's house and was hanging out with him for a few minutes before his night shift with the baby. It was so inconsiderate and really set the pace for the rest of our relationship. It went just like that for 5 years until I finally dumped him. Story 24. I had a friend that was going through some serious health stuff. My wife was texting with his wife, getting updates. They're best friends, grew up together. She hands me the phone to read the texts about what was going on, so I'm scrolling up and reading them when I get to the beginning of the conversation. I notice there's a picture that was sent to her of me bending down playing with her daughter a day or two before. So I scroll up a little farther and see her making callous remarks about my thinning hair. I scrolled back to the bottom and gave her the phone back. I never said anything to her about it, and she still doesn't know I saw it. It hurts because I would never do or say things like that regarding anything with her appearance. I know my hair is thinning on top as I get older, but I never had an issue with it until that moment. Now I always wear a hat. Wait till her hair is thinning. It happens to women too. Story 25. He got me a household item that I didn't ask for or want and that he uses often for my birthday, the day of my birthday. Shortly after that, it was Christmas and he didn't get me anything at all and suggested very late in the evening that maybe he could pay for me to do something if I wanted. He literally didn't even think about getting me a single thing or even planning anything for me when I plan his birthday every year. For clarity, he has never planned a birthday for me and is happy to let the day go by without comment. This year, I'm not getting him crap, and I'm not planning crap for him. Story 26. This happened years ago, but I never forget it. My significant other and I had season passes to Disneyland. I'm 120 pounds and my body does not regulate temperature well. If I get cold enough, my lips turn blue and my fingers start feeling like pins and needles. After spending the day there, that night it had gone really cold and I wasn't expecting it, so I did not bring a sweater. I asked him if I could buy one. Of course, they were expensive, and he said he wasn't going to pay for that much for a sweater. So I was freezing the rest of the night, especially on the tram back to the car. By the time we got to the car, I was shivering pretty violently. I was also in sandals. A couple of months later, it is colder and he forgets his jacket. He goes in and buys one. He's a lot bigger than me and almost never gets cold. He can deal with a cold, though, and it takes him a lot to get that cold. As he walked out and put on his sweater, he did not see that I was trying not to cry. I felt so betrayed. He knew how cold I had been and my problem with temperature, but because it wasn't cold, he assumed I was just being dramatic, I guess. Story 27. My most recent birthday was a disaster. My husband and I had been trying to get a relationship back on track after his cheating, among other things. I'm not big on birthdays, but I told him that there was something specific that I wanted that year. There was a local bakery that I frequented as a kid that closed when I was in high school. The owners reopened the bakery about 10 years after the original closed. I was so happy. I called them to ask if they still made a particular type of cupcake that I bought all the time as a kid. They did. So I told my husband that is what I wanted for my birthday, a dozen of those cupcakes. That is the only thing I asked for. The day before my birthday, I asked him when would the cupcakes need to be picked up. He looked at me like I had two heads. He forgot. I called the bakery right then and ordered the cupcakes, but couldn't pick them up until a few days after my birthday because it was a custom order that they needed on time. I picked them up and paid for them myself. Most disappointing birthday ever. I asked for so little. Story 28. Me and my significant other, or LDR, we call each other every night for daily updates. Whenever there's a problem with my earphones, like static or mic problems, I try to solve it right away. Sometimes I even buy new earphones, even though my current one is still functioning well, just for the sake of his hearing comfort. But whenever the problem is on his end, he makes a little to no effort to fix it. I even endured a month of static communication in his end, and when I had enough, I used the magic word please. Yes, he threw the earphones, but now we're talking on speakerphone and I hear everything. Lol. I feel betrayed with the lack of effort. He can afford to buy a new one. He works at DOST. He even has spare earphones he uses when he travels at work with his motorcycle. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 29. I had a wonderful significant other who lived in Canada. I live in California. It was a long-distance relationship. I loved her more than anything. I've also never really been around snow. So during one visit to Canada, it snowed. I was ecstatic. I begged her to have a snowball fight. She declined, saying that they're dumb and she didn't like that kind of thing. I was sad, but let it go. After returning to Cali while on a Skype call with her, she excitedly tells about a snowball fight she just had with her friends. I was dumbfounded, because she was so adamant about how she hated snowball fights. I felt like I was second fiddle and couldn't understand why she'd do that with him, but not me. I miss her to this day, but I don't know if I'll forget that part of the trip. Story 30. I used to be on the volunteer board of a nonprofit soccer club. A crazy soccer mom didn't like a decision by the board about next year's teams, going to birth year rather than school year, and that my kid was going to continue playing up in an older level team. This soccer mom screamed at me on the sidelines of a game. It was a little unhinged, yelling that the only reason my kid got special treatment was because I was on the board. If she's not that good, and etc. Apparently, it didn't matter that she was not only the fastest kid in that team, but also the fastest in her whole school, boys included. Because of my position on the board, I decided not to get into it with her, but I was shocked and upset. This woman insulted me and my daughter. I told my husband all about the encounter. A few people checked in on me later, and her husband apologized when he heard about it. At the next week's game, my husband is on the sidelines, chatting to her like old friends. No big deal. Story 31. He rearranged a cupboard. Sounds stupid, but I was the only one that used that cupboard. It held food and spices, and I did 100% of the cooking. He rearranged it so that it looked better to him. While doing so, he hid some of the most used items in the back and put them on shelves I couldn't reach. I'll reiterate, he didn't use this cupboard. It finally hit me that his need to control every aspect of his and my environment would never change, and it wouldn't matter to him how it impacted me. I told him I can't reach the salt now, and his response was that he liked it better this way. It was too cluttered before. It blew my mind because, again, I did all of the cooking. I never once made a meal, and he could have gone his whole life without even opening that cupboard if it annoyed him the way I had set it up. But he needed to do what he wanted with it, even though it didn't really make a difference for him and made my life more difficult. Story 32. We were 19 or 20 at the time. My ex and I were long distance for a while. He was in the next state over for college. I was visiting him for a week, and he said he was going to take me on a nice dinner date, so I packed a nice dress and sandals, and I was so excited because we didn't go on dates very often. We're about to pull into the parking lot, and he goes, "Hey, I was actually wondering if you could pay tonight." For no particular reason. I was stunned and just agreed because he had anger issues and was a bit scared when we got into fights. It was just an Outback steakhouse, so it wasn't crazy expensive. Another time, same ex. The birthday was within literally a week and he asked what I wanted, knowing, or so I thought, he didn't have much to spend. I just said he didn't have to get me anything and not to worry. He bought like a $700 puppy. Didn't even get me a card or flowers. So glad he's out of my life. Lol. Story 33. We've been playing the game of doorknob for almost 3 years, since we've known each other. We went backpacking over a weekend, and as he felt relaxed and connected and happy, he innocently let his guard down and flatulated so loudly, and for so long, that the bird stopped singing. Immediately I called out, "Doorknob," and he realized his mistake, shouting, "No!" into the luscious, doorknobless scenery around us. Another 24 hours from civilization, I began hurting him, and he was helpless to stop me for the entire night. The entire next day and the entire drive back into town, until he stopped at the first gas station that actually used doorknobs. Obviously, door handles don't count. Fast forward to our next backpacking trip a few months later. This one was 4 days. Much more dire consequences. I was determined to have my victory once more, so I played it cool, as though I had forgotten about the whole ordeal. At some point in the trip, I needed the first aid kit, which he keeps in the top of his backpack. Without thinking, he lets me go through his bag. To my horror, I find that he has been keeping an errant doorknob in his bag, ready and waiting until I doorknob him again. All so he can override my inevitable victory over him in the middle of the woods. I've never forgiven him for this, and I'm not really sure I ever will. Story 34. My sister and her 3-year-old had to come stay with us, my now ex-wife and I, for a 3 to 4 month period. It was not ideal, but it was not a vacation. Before my sister came, I advocated to rent her a place nearby. My ex insisted that it's not cool and that we must host family in our place. As soon as my sister came, my ex started the drama. "You're spending too much time with him. You're marginalizing me, etc." That was all within 3 days of my sister's arrival. And it was not a discussion, it was an explosion within 3 days of arrival. The context here is that my ex has a massive boundary, or lack thereof, with her family that I kept putting up with for years before that. My family and sister live abroad and we see them once every year at most. The drama continued. I kept managing until one day my ex got really upset at my sister for putting her laundry in the living room chair while she was doing laundry and before folding them. I felt forever betrayed. I'd put up with so much with her family and did so much to support her. And the one time I needed to be there for my family, she had no patience to support me nor courtesy for a guest. Could never recover from that, and now we are divorced. Story 35. It was my ex's birthday and we had dinner at a nice place. During dinner, I began to feel a little iffy. The feeling you feel when you suddenly realize the reason you've been so wiped out the last day or so is because you're getting sick. But I pushed through and we went to the movie I was extremely excited to see, Red Dawn Remake. When we sat down for the movie, I really began to feel horrible. I spiked a fever, felt woozy, and about a quarter of the way in, I had to run to the bathroom to retch. I was in there probably 15 minutes, retching the whole time. Finally, I was able to get to our car and I got in and I just kinda collapsed. I texted him. I was really sick and could barely move and felt dizzy. He didn't text back. Finally, after an hour or so, after the movie ends, he comes out and complains that he has to drive me home and then drive to also get our kids. Turns out I had strep throat and was really sick for about a week. Story 36. I went through a really bad period with my mental health a while back. Did the whole therapy thing, got placed on meds, and so on. Anyways, my boyfriend, who was one of the few people I felt comfortable being honest with about some of this stuff, would throw some of my struggles back in my face during arguments or even normal conversation, calling me paranoid or delusional, amongst other things. I'm not proud of many things I've accomplished, but the progress I made from my mental health is one of them. I went through hell and back with that. Anyways, a while back, I expressed that it was hurtful to hear him say those things, and he told me to get over it. Anyone I've told tells me it's normal to say hurtful stuff during arguments. Yeah, I'm still pretty bummed about it. Story 37. I dated this man-child back in high school or early college who had a superiority complex. I think some of it stemmed from being a twin, as both of them were very smart, athletically gifted, and driven. It was the younger twin, by about 5 minutes, but it seemed like he always wanted to be number one. Anywho, one day we were looking through old school paperwork and found our gifted test scores, complete with IQ scores on them. My score was about 15 points higher than his, which he hated. He looked at me and straight up said, "Well, you certainly don't act like it." He was very gifted when it came to math and science. I swear the man could do differential equations in his head. I'm more creative and excel in English and history. Our brains just work differently, but we were both smart. I remember just looking at him and wanting to smack some sense into him, but held back. He was also obsessed with physical appearances. If I would have a snack-sized bag of chips as a snack, he would tell me we would need to run an extra 2 miles that day to burn it off. We broke up after nearly 2.5 years of nonsense. The emotional cruelty had me convinced I wasn't good enough, but I came to my senses. Joke's on him, though. I went on to model for several surf or sports magazines and had a successful career in journalism and editing before having children. Story 38. I'm a massive music head. I pretty much listen to music all day long unless I'm watching something. I was listening to some calm music quietly at like 9 p.m. and my ex completely lost her mind, slammed my laptop shut and started yelling about how she didn't want to hear music at nighttime. She could have asked me calmly to turn it off. I would have. I'm reasonable. At the time, she was unemployed and not looking for jobs. Not like she had anywhere to be in the morning. I just felt duped because she made it seem like she was a music head too, but I soon learned she hardly gave a crap about music. Story 39. He told me he had quit smoking, early 2000s. We had friends over and I was sitting outside with them while they had a smoke. They said something about my partner not coming outside for a smoke, and I said he had quit 6 months ago and how proud I was of him. 20 years later, I can still distinctly remember the look of confusion on their faces before they said he had been smoking the weekend before. I didn't doubt him for a second and said they must have been mistaken. They didn't look convinced, but they shrugged and we moved on. They must have said something to him, though, as a few days later he confessed. He's only stopped smoking for around a week. He was, quote, too hard, so he kept smoking and just pretended to me he had quit. I didn't really say anything, but it broke something inside me. It wasn't just the betrayal, but that I had defended him, so I also felt embarrassed. Story 40. We aren't together anymore, but back when my ex and I were together, we had both discussed marriage. I knew it was probably approaching, given our situation, because we discussed it a lot before. What stung for me, though, was that he went online and bought two $30 candles that were those special kinds that come with surprises inside. They had teeny tiny, like sand grain-sized diamonds inside them that you got once they melted to a certain point. If you bought enough candles and collected a certain number, you could ship them back to the company and they'd put them in a cheap brass ring for free. That's how he planned on getting my engagement ring. And honestly, it broke my heart. He made pretty good money and paid like $1,200 in expenses a month. I pay more than that now as a single mother and I don't even make the money he makes. It broke my heart that he couldn't actually get off his back and get me a nice engagement ring and instead chose some cheap male BS. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stuck up, but that really hurt me. Story 41. My mom stayed with my dad since she was 16. She was a teenager and knew a little about life. My father at the time had a wife and 4 kids. One was still in the wife's tummy. My mom ran away with him to a faraway city. He left his wife. My mom left her whole family. My mom loved him so much, she put him ahead of all the kids. Small example, anything delicious he would be the first to taste and to have, he would take it as it should be. My father took her kindness for granted and never stopped looking for girls. My bedroom was next to theirs, and many nights I overheard him sweet-talking to other women. Spent a lot of money online watching girls and spent my mom's money on real estate investments, which turned out to be failures. They were in their 60s and 70s last year. My mom passed away. My father refused to see her in her last minutes and refused to be present when we buried her. His words, "He does not feel good enough the last year because my mom did not spend enough time with him. He sits in a wheelchair now and requests 24-hour care. Sorry, this is not small. After reading some posts, I just can't help it. I still cry every day for my mom." Story 42. Music was a big reason my ex-husband and I connected in the first place. We were only 15 and 16 at the time of meeting, but his eyes lit up when he realized I listened to Slipknot. Over a decade goes by, we get married, things are lovely. He gets an intern at work. He asked her what she was listening to one day and got excited because it was a metal song. He tells me about this and I give him some suggestions for her to listen to. No biggie. A year or two later, I happened to see one of his playlists in Spotify with some kind of inappropriate name. I opened it and realized it was a playlist they shared together. We didn't even have a playlist we shared. I didn't know it felt like a betrayal after all. I gave him suggestions back in the day. It just kind of felt like I was getting replaced a little bit. Turns out my gut was right to feel a bit sad. He eventually had an affair with her and divorced me to be with her. Story 43. At my mother's wake, he left early because it was happy hour at the club. Can't miss that, can you? He also thought I was dwelling on things too much, and this is his way of helping. His mother had passed away a few years earlier, and I was very supportive of him and the time he needed to grieve, which included leaving his job and me having to return to work much sooner than planned. I just had our baby. But when my mother passed away, he expected me to continue working and act like nothing happened. Everyone passes away, you know. You can't let these things get to you. Story 44. This year was my first Mother's Day as a mom myself, and I'd hoped he would do something thoughtful for me, even a sweet handwritten card with his and our son's name on it. He not only didn't do anything for me, aside from the dishes, but we also spent no time together and I didn't get so much as a hug. I spent the day caring for our 11-month-old son on my own as usual while he played video games. I later also found out that he told his mother he didn't do anything for me because I would have just gone mad at him if he spent money on anything, which has never happened and makes me look like an asshole to his family. Plus, he spends all of his money on himself all the time and I've never yelled at him. It was a major disappointment, to say the least. Story 45. Wow, I just felt betrayed by my significant other for something stupidly small yesterday, and now this question pops up. Almost creepy. Context. So after dinner, I always clear off the table, clean up the kitchen, and put everything in the dishwasher. Because my wife cooks, I always leave the coasters on the table and ask her to throw them from where she's sitting to the kitchen. It's a stupid little ritual that brings me joy. So yesterday, I do as I always do and leave the coasters on the table. I'm in the kitchen and ask her to throw the coasters, and she's like, "Nah, I don't feel like it." So I'm like, "Oh, come on. I really enjoy that part of the cleanup." And she insists that she doesn't feel like it. The thing itself was small, and that's what makes it feel like betrayal. I could never imagine myself refusing to do something that requires an insignificant amount of time and effort on my part if I knew it brought joy to her. Story 46. A few months before her dog passed, she was dealing with a lot of health issues and had lost the use of her back legs. She was often sore and in pain, and it was hard timing when to let her go. There was a lot of bad days, but I convinced myself that the few sparse good days meant she was still hanging on. I dedicated a solid 6 weeks of my life to almost exclusively taking care of her. I'd sleep only a few hours a day because she'd wake up and be disoriented, and I wanted to make sure I was nearby to take her out or just provide comfort with treats or pets. I was exhausted physically and mentally. It definitely seeped into my day-to-day life, but it was worth it for my best friend. Accidents in the house had become more common as she lost the use of the lower half of her body and didn't always realize when she needed to go out. One day I was cleaning her up after one of these accidents and she snarled and bit me for the first time ever. She was almost 15. It absolutely broke my heart, and I've never had a person or animal make me feel that distraught and hurt since. I know or knew it wasn't her fault, but the shock paired with the exhaustion pushed me over the edge. Story 47. When my ex-husband would cook or get food, if there were two ways or something could be done, we both wanted different things. 100% of the time, he would get his way and I would not. Example, I like brothy soup. When he made soup, it was always thick like stew. I was always doing the thing everyone else preferred. And it made me feel unseen and uncredited about that he would never choose to give to my preference. I would even ask sometimes specifically, and he'd say he'd like it better the other way. They did that one year when he made my birthday cookie. He would also overcook steak, knowing I like it medium rare. Every time, if I got a steak that was what I wanted, it's because he undercooked them all, and I grabbed one before he got to the grill. It gets to a point you start to know it's not accidental. Story 48. My ex called me annoying. I know, not a big deal, but this was a while ago and I had very bad feelings about myself in general at this time. Pretty much anyone I ever got close enough to show my real self eventually called me annoying. It broke my heart every time someone did that. It was like confirmation that people were only ever putting up with me rather than actually enjoying my presence in their lives. It shut me down completely when he said it. We'd been together 4 years and never once did he call me annoying. It was actually, stupidly, a big deal to me and made me feel like maybe he understood me better than others. I never looked at him the same. Story 49. This was my first live-in partner that didn't last, and he did 100 big things. But one small thing was on my birthday. He got called into work and said yes. They called him all the time and he had a choice. He also ditched me on New Year's Eve a few hours before the midnight kiss thing. I went to a friend's place and got really spiked. When he got back, everyone got hammered, but I couldn't drink. I felt really lonely even though I was surrounded by people. Why do you have trust issues? I have issues relating with other women because I have a terrible mother who either can't keep anything I tell her to herself, mocks me if we're arguing, or entirely misconstrues any given situation. Daughter has got a stomachache. Gotta flip out and call her father and rant about her being pregnant. Daughter called up upset having issues with another family member. Console them now. Make fun of them about it during a later tiff. Alternatively, call that family member and tell them everything. See daughter rinsing out hair dye of fully clothed friend who is a lesbian. Tell everyone you know your daughter is a full-blown lesbian. Trying to hook daughter up with government benefits in between jobs. Scream and humiliate her in public because she doesn't want to BS her way through her forms. Screw you, Mom. Perhaps a mother-daughter communication class is in order for both of them. Story 2. My best friend and my past both play into my trust issues. I'm a dude, my best friend is a girl. She cheated on all her boyfriends. And her current boyfriend she's been with for 3 years now, she must have cheated on him around 7 times. The guy has no clue. To him, everything is going extremely well. As for my past, I've been with a few women who had a significant other. The one that sticks out the most was when my buddy and this gal went to his place just to hang out. We drink a little, and me and the gal end up going at it in my friend's bathroom for a solid 2 hours. By the time 5 a.m. rolled around, her boyfriend called her, asking her what she's doing, to which she replied without skipping a beat. Just watching YouTube with Laughing on the Sun and Laughing on the Sun's buddy. They ended up breaking up, but whenever I got into a serious relationship, that's always in the back of my mind. It's really easy to cheat. Some people can go about it as if nothing is wrong and just don't have any clue or lead. My best friend, the girl I mentioned earlier, has it down to a science. She's proud of cheating practically. Currently, she's some dude at her job. Just a few weeks before that, she was a dude in a cruise ship. She's going on a trip a few weeks from now, and guess what she'll be doing? Story 3. Because of my son of a witch friend. I was in 3rd grade, and I like this cute girl. My friend and I go to the bathroom, and while we're in there, he asks me if I like anybody. I'd never told anybody anything about who I like, but I trusted this guy. I told him about this girl. This guy laughs in my face, walks out of the bathroom, and tells the girl. He then went and made her his girlfriend over the course of a couple days. He had no prior interest, just wanted to see if he could do it. Like, what the hell? I mean, we were in 3rd grade and all, but seriously, dude took like 4 figurative craps on me. It did kind of work out, though, because she eventually broke up with him and started playing house with me. I never asked her out because I was terrified, but it was good times. My best friend, different guy, would play her kid, and she'd always send him off to do chores so we could talk by ourselves. Story 4. I was dating a girl, and I thought things were great. However, there would be a consistent trend of her putting her own well-being above mine, and I was okay with that because I loved her. Then we would have intimacy anytime she wanted to, regardless of my own willingness. I wrote this up because she was depressed at the time, and I was not okay with it, but understood. Then we broke up as she battled depression. We eventually got back together, but it was more of the same. You planned a fancy dinner for us? Well, I'm not feeling pasta tonight. Throw it out. Are you sleepy or busy right now? Too bad. I want to fool around. Eventually, it went too far. I was not only unwilling, but in an extreme case of intoxication and was not able to think, much less decide what to do intimately. When I woke up from this haze, I ended the relationship. She then told me how she feels like she wants so much intimacy because she was mistreated before. She told me this according to her not to let me feel guilt for her, but to make me try to understand. It's tough to trust people now. I want to date and meet people, but what if they're just like her? People with viperous backgrounds waiting to destroy me, bend me to their will to overcome their own issues with no concern as to my well-being. Story 5. Every relationship I've been in has ended because of cheating. Except one. A few were just real pieces of crap guys that I should have known better, but one that really screwed me over was my high school sweetheart. He was the sweetest boy. He and I were together for almost 2 years and did everything together. We lost our V-cards to one another, were each other's first loves. He had also been cheated on before, so I felt safe. I thought we would be together forever. Naive, I know. He started coming home with evidences, then he let a bomb drop on me that he had slept with some girl 3 months prior. Now he was in love with some different girl and wanted to break it off with me and be with her. I was devastated. The next relationship I was in didn't end because of cheating, but he was mentally cruel, was very controlling, and put down my self-esteem into nothing. We were in and out of that relationship for almost 3 years till I finally had the courage to walk away. Now I don't really trust men to stick around. Story 6. Where do I start? I've had countless friends use me before, but really got me to this state of mind would be my last 3 girlfriends. First one broke up with me to go out with a friend of mine. I was friends with that guy for 5 years before this happened, and he started claiming we were never friends in the first place. The second one introduced me to a new guy friend of hers that she said was like me in a few ways and that I could probably be friends with the guy. She ends up breaking up with me and going out with that guy. The last girlfriend was the cherry topper. She was the closest to me. She knew about how I've had bad luck with friends and past relationships. Fast forward a couple years and she cheats on me with one of my friends. After that, I can't trust any of my friends. Story 7. Well, my dad had a drinking problem, and my mom had to work all the time to pick up the slack or debt he created. But I guess my dad didn't have the self-awareness, and my mom felt too guilty or whatever for either of them to ever be able to tell me no. So instead, they said yes. Yes, they could do that. Yes, I could have that. Yes, that could happen. But they couldn't. I couldn't, and it couldn't. So the lesson I took away pretty early on was that people rarely come through for you, so you gotta do things yourself. And so I grew up into a teenager, then an adult. Never asked anyone for anything. I never looked for support or help or input, and always had to do everything myself. Except, once again, I couldn't. So I'd end up trying to make it all work totally solo until inevitably something fell apart, and only then would I ask for any help, when things were bad enough that almost people couldn't help. Once again, reinforcing my notion that you can't rely on anyone but yourself. And thus goes the vicious cycle of that self-fulfilling prophecy. I've got some awareness of it now, and I'm working on changing those behaviors or beliefs. And I made some progress, but yeah. Story 8. My father was a cruel man. Never worked a day in his life, but demanded all the respect in the world. He hurt me several times. My mother got angry at me for making him so mad. He was always under the influence. He had prescriptions for them that he would misuse. When he ran out before the next refill, he would rage. My mother generally remained emotionally distant or absent, never intervened in any serious way. These things were never acknowledged as problems. A very common thing they do is to isolate those they hurt. Maybe they do it purposefully, maybe not, but there's definitely a trend there. I was never close with any of my extended family. I just never knew them. Strange, seeing as I had over a dozen aunts and uncles with a dozen more cousins of roughly the same age group. I saw them a few times a year. For Christmas, Easter, and the like. I was very aware of how much I felt as though I didn't fit in or how I never felt accepted. I thought I couldn't be. My older brother got into substances as a young adult. He'd be about 16 when this started. I'd be 12. They tend to be untrustworthy and will often strong-arm, bully, steal, or guilt family members into giving them money to get them what they crave, always lying about why they don't have enough money. You know this is wrong, but again, it's never acknowledged. You doubt yourself and struggle to even trust your own perceptions of what is going on in your family. Surely you're just crazy, right? I was insanely depressed and felt guilty for most of my life for feeling bad. I isolated myself to the extreme to hide how I felt. Predictably, when I turned 18, I started drinking heavily. Oh boy, was that ever terrible. It's been a decade since then. At some point in the past 3 years, everything turned around. I cut myself off from my extraordinarily toxic family and other old relationships. You get to take charge of your own life, and hey, you're happy. But opening up to people, mostly men, is damn near impossible. It's impossible for me to pinpoint a single reason. It's more the result of the collection of my experiences. Story 9. My girlfriend of 3 years cheated on me repeatedly throughout, constantly blaming me for any of the failings in our relationship. She cheated on me with one of my close friends and convinced me that he had tricked her into thinking I was cheating on her, and fooled around with him as a result. She never asked me about the cheating until after she had slept with him, though. So that was a bit of a double whammy. She lied constantly about things she did not need to lie about. For instance, I took a course in economics and learned how tax brackets worked. That not your entire income is taxed at the highest bracket you're in. She told me I was wrong, that she knew I was wrong because she balanced her father's checkbooks and that her father had a master's in economics. This kind of also jumps into the fact that she constantly put me down and threatened to leave me if I didn't cut off contact with my friends whom she did not like, except for the one she slept with. One instance that jumps out at me of where my trust was pretty hurt bad was when she threatened to break up with me because I didn't want to chauffeur her around. As a result of that, I felt physically ill and got sick. She just stared at me in disgust. Story 10. My mom is a liar, and so are many of her relatives. I was pestered in grade school until 8th grade, where I finally stood up for myself and slowed down. However, not one person stepped in to help me, except for one teacher I had a few times a week. They didn't tolerate the pestering. Aside from all this, I volunteer as a ring director at martial arts tournaments fairly often. The amount of score fudging by judges who favor their own students is ridiculous. I still have to write down those biased scores. I've been in tournaments where the entire sparring portion of my ring was completely unfair due to biased judging. I'm not even exaggerating here. There were 2 judges who literally only called points for their own students. The score difference was at least 8 points for almost every match, and scoring was only time-based. It was depressing. It was a 4-judge ring. I don't know why, it should have been an odd number. So those 2 judges basically controlled the scoring, and I couldn't say anything about it. Along with this, the parents of some students think their child is the center of the universe and have to confront me about it when I'm literally just recording the scores given by the judges. And to top it all off, 90% of the people I mentioned have no idea they've done anything wrong. And people don't even know they've done wrong. What can they do about it? I can't do anything. Hey, at least he's not the one judging. Imagine having to deal with those entitled parents all the time. Story 11. I'm not sure trust issues is quite the right word for it, but I absolutely cannot stand negative surprises, and it has to do with the fact that I had no idea my parents' divorce was coming. As far as I knew, my parents were getting along pretty well. They would have small fights every now and then, but they were nothing serious. At least the ones that I saw. The first fight that seemed serious involved my dad slamming down his chair while the rest of us were eating dinner and yelling at my mom. Neither my brother nor I had seen my dad this angry or violent. He never laid a hand on any of us, and still didn't. To his credit, my mom ended up being kicked out of the house. Perhaps a week later, they were divorced and living in separate houses. Being blindsided at such a crucial developmental stage, I was towards the end of middle school, getting ready to go into high school, did wonders for my self-esteem, and I get really, really anxious and stressed to the point of panic attacks when I think people are hiding things from me, for my own good. Story 12. In primary school, I came to 3 kids I thought were my friends during the break. They were running around, catching each other. Completely oblivious to rejection, I joined the game, and one came up to me and said something along the lines of, "What are related?" or "What are you doing?" I continued playing with the others, ignoring me. Never again did I approach a group of people without them pointing interest in me beforehand. I triple check if I'm related every time I join a conversation. I barely initiate WhatsApp conversations. I'm afraid of showing interest in people. You'll never see me even close to socially intruding. Almost all of my socializing comes from people who attract to me. And to attract them, I spend enormous resources and effort to make myself an intriguing, interesting, witty, humorous person. Because if I'm not and nobody comes on their own, I'm stuck all alone. Just an example of how a tiny, small event can illogically mess up a person for life. Story 13. I fell in love with and almost married a diagnosed schizophrenic and malignant narcissist who stole my identity, emptied all my accounts, and screwed my neighbor before bricking my phone and computer. It all kind of built to this denouement really slowly over years, and then, poof, you're broke. All social media is being vandalized, you have no telephone or computer, and you can hear them in the next apartment against the wall adjacent to your bedroom. Also, she brought home a bedbug infestation and has been ordering $1,000 shoes in your Amex for months, but you willfully ignored that part of your bill and just paid it, because you're an idiot. Her and her family pretty much lied to me about her diagnoses from day one, but one fine summer, I guess she stopped taking those medications. That crap I mentioned was just the tip of the iceberg, too. Substances, shoplifting sprees, lacing the town with hate speech graffiti as a hobby. For Christ's sakes, I've said enough. And now I don't trust women by and large. She was such an amazing liar, I don't really know what's what in a sense. I don't have anything against women at all, however. They're not a monolith. I'm just aware of how badly they can mess my stuff up, as can anyone I let into my heart. I've even made an active effort to forgive her in my heart during the previous year. It was successful, in my opinion. But no, you can't get close to me. I don't want your number, and intimacy has been kind of ruined. I just don't want it anymore. Strangest thing. Story 14. Where do I begin? My father neglected to teach me the livelihood of how to grow up, be mature, and take care of myself because he couldn't do it himself. A failure, stuck in the past, blaming all his problems on everyone else. When he was forced to live on his own when he split with my mother, he manipulated me into moving in with him, and my family went along with it. I was the lightning rod for all his anger, hate, and depression for 4 years throughout high school. During that time, I was barely getting by trying to make friends. I was a tool to everyone because I thought the term kindness was a great thing to have. While every girl and guy were dating and fooling around, I was alone and desperate. There were times I admit I wasn't the greatest person, but I deserved a chance. Never got it. My friends would always get together behind my back and never include me. Then my most recent event is my dad ending himself and blaming it on my stepmom, who just bore my half-brother. I honestly don't know how much I lost. The only thing I can think of is just walking down the road to the field of work I've decided to go into a long time ago. This road is going to be alone because I'm going to remain alone for the rest of my life. And that's how I want it to stay so no one else hurts me. Story 15. Because I live in a city of millions and although I'm only in my 30s, I feel like I've heard it all. Out of jail need bus fare, cash for a ticket out of town, sick this, passing away that, hunger the other. A new charity on every corner. Poorly Xerox Black Power magazines full of stars, insanity and spelling mistakes. Hey, do you have the time and some change? Hey, nice shirt. Spare any change? Do you know how I get into blah and spare change? Then you live in the same neighborhood long enough and you get to recognize a lot of these people. I was so hungry but won't take up an offer to buy lunch in the McDonald's you're standing outside of. Sick whatever, but I see you dumping your cup at the liquor store. Nowadays, it takes a lot to even get me to slow my pace, let alone make eye contact, let alone actually speak to anyone out in public. And it makes me sad because I honestly can't remember the last time I talked to a stranger when it wasn't a part of a transaction or an attempt at one. I can't talk without hitting half a dozen people, yet I don't talk to anyone I don't already know. Story 16. First time poster, though I would add something. I was a troubled kid early on. Around 10 to 11, I don't remember and don't want to. I was threatening to end it all in my house. I think I just wanted attention at the time, honestly. Not sure. Either way, my mother took it seriously and had me committed to a hospital. She left me there all alone with these kids and faculty who were just there to restrain the kids. I remember staying up all night when I got there, watching the highway from the top floor of this hospital, thinking each car light was my mother coming to pick me up and take me home. Needless to say, she never returned that night, or the next, for that matter. I got pestered a couple of times by some of the kids with some serious issues and was restrained by the staff when I acted up. She showed up about 2 weeks later, and when the staff had evaluated me to go home again, I don't think I ever really had the same emotional connection with my mother or any of my family after that. My behavior got progressively worse over the coming years. I went to live with my dad after that for high school. I still hate highways and hospital gowns. Story 17. Been cheated on by all 3 of my past girlfriends. The last one, when she told me she and my now ex-best friend were in a relationship, and I reminded her that now her baby brother won't have a positive male role model, she snapped, ran away, and disappeared for 3 days. Soon after, I found they had eloped in Vegas and he took her back to Germany with him, where he was stationed. Oddly enough, at some point after each time I was cheated on, the girl attempted to reconcile by suggesting I'm still too nice to say no. And the families were absolutely devastated that I would no longer be around, especially the ones with kids who we'd babysit and I'd teach or play with. You can only step on nice people for so long before they turn into something else. Now I can't trust females my age, and I keep my male friends at a distance. Been single and dateless for 4 years now. I also have zero tolerance for mixed signals. After years of being told I'm too nice, but I'm also a schmuck, but I'm a nice schmuck, and all these other paradoxical things, I find the biggest turnoff to be hypocrisy in people. I get situations change, warranting adaptation, but when things change completely out of spite or immaturity, nuh-uh. Bye, Felicia. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. I spent a long time being pestered, from the age of about 5 until I was 11. The thing about it was that everything I'd tried to do, bar getting my parents to go shout at the headmistress, was ignored by the majority of my teachers. The end result is that I don't like to show many emotions, and I have trouble expressing feelings. Emotionally constipated, as my brother describes it. In secondary school, I was the kid people went to when they had trouble in math and occasionally science. Around year 8 or 9, 12, 13, 14, several people started looking for ways to make me look bad, so I started trying to find out if there was anyone I could date. So I became very closed off and don't particularly like to tell people anything if they're not related to me, out of a somewhat irrational fear that people will use anything I tell them against me. The only people I really trust are my dad, interpersonal issues only. He doesn't need to know about how messed up I think I am. And my friend James. Anything. Story 19. Because one of my only friends in middle school turned out to be a messed up schmuck. He decided to do such hilarious things as make me angry because it was funny. Yeah, kid with anger issues. Hilarious. Full pranks like destroy everything I worked on when we were gaming. We did this a lot, and tried to repeatedly pressure me until I hung out with him again. One of my other friends who also spent a lot of time with us just sat idly by and watched this. After I finally ditched the guy for doing this, he started straight up pestering me at school. He'd spread nasty crap, chuck stuff at the back of my head. Those little eraser caps hurt when they hit right. And because he was that guy who everyone was friends with or liked, everyone took his side. I don't hang out with my friends as much anymore, regardless of how great they are, because of this crap. Sounds like he needed a good dose of his own medicine. Maybe a few placed wedgies would have taught him a lesson. Story 20. This one time when I was a kid, my mom and I were walking around the mall. I fixated on this toy car that I really, really liked, but my mom already got me another toy for that day, so I just took note of that for next time. My mom frequents the establishment, and the next time she went, asked her to check the price of the toy car, to know how much it was, and hey, maybe she'll get it for me. I was so excited for her to come home, only to find out that the toy car costs X amount, which is expensive. I felt deflated, but was ultimately fine. Then this one other time we went to another mall which had a branch of the first establishment, and I saw the same toy car. I looked at it and saw that it only cost less than half of what my mother told me. I was devastated that I didn't even want it anymore. I never truly trusted anyone after that. Story 21. Between realizing that I'm an afterthought or not even a thought to most people, having a childhood friend who I always spoke well of, not being able to look me in the eye anymore and making up excuses as to why he can't talk to me or follow through with plans. Now I'll definitely be there for your 21st birthday and I'll bring everyone. Expect 40 of us. Organizes a big event. Turns out he's playing golf and only 3 people drop by throughout the day. I felt so bad that my parents paid for all the food and whatnot that I sent each person home with 1/3 of everything and told my parents that a lot of people came but had to leave for work. I learned that rum and vodka are good friends that night, and finding out that my childhood best friend actually despised me. Explains why when I told him I was in the hospital with illness X, all I got back was, good. His ex told me everything. I wish I knew sooner before booking a trip with him. Only to have him drop me 2 weeks before going. I still went anyway. It was awkward, but not stressful. Story 22. Because people lie. And it does not need to be an important matter. Some people will lie about anything for no more reason than those were the words that fell out of their mouths. People lie. And until you prove to me that you aren't a lying piece of crap, it is always going to itch at the back of my mind. The worst part is, there's absolutely no way you can prove to me that you're not a liar. I know that. The best you can hope for is to prove that you haven't lied to me yet, and that's a lot of work. Story 23. Man, where to even begin? When I was 12, I found out my father cheated on my mother while they were engaged with his first girlfriend and that I have a half-brother living in Mexico. So any semblance of a normal, happy family that I once had was completely botched. Since we found out, my mother became a bitter and jealous lady who always picked fights with my father. Not an ideal home situation. I've always been a timid, geeky kid. Didn't get a lot of attention, was teased a lot, which made me have very low confidence and self-esteem, and my first boyfriend did not help matters. What started off as very loving and sweet became emotionally cruel. It made me feel fat and ugly, like no one would even want me more than him. He was such an attention seeker that while I was talking to him, I'd notice his eyes wander to some beautiful girls in the room, and I never felt like enough. The real shame about it is that I met a really wonderful person and my trust issues and insecurities pushed him away. Story 24. Because I was mistreated in April, while I was at the police station, I called my boyfriend of 16 years about what had happened. He immediately ghosted me. I was stuck in a hospital for a week. He refused to talk to me after 16 years of being with him. Then after 2 months, I got a call from a mutual friend stating that he was accusing me of saying that he was the one who did it. I had to get a deputy to contact him to tell him to stop spreading false information, but he persists in the rumor. It made me feel like I was a criminal even though I was the one who was violated. I am now so full of trust issues that I don't think I ever want to get into another relationship for fear that I will devote years into it, only to find that the guy will ghost me again. He was my second boyfriend. I'm now in my 30s. He's about to turn 43 years old on October 17th. And I'm alone for the first time since I was in my teens. I feel betrayed and I can't trust anyone anymore. Story 25. My mom used to purposely do things to anger my dad and make him yell at her. As a child, I didn't understand why, so when she told me he was cruel, I trusted her because I was 5 years old. I didn't truly know any better. My dad has also told me many things about my mom and how she's actually the cruel one. Now that I'm 20, I'm having a really hard time figuring out who was right and wrong. Both of them have lied to me and put me in very uncomfortable situations, which has caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. I'm so stressed that I'm not sleeping well and I can barely remember what day or year it is. I still live with them because every time one of my siblings moved out, they got yelled at for leaving. This has made me too scared to even think about looking for my own apartment, and I have no idea what to do about it all. I'm sorry for the long message, I just needed to get all of this out. Story 26. I was a social outcast in middle school, and then I'm 8th grade and this really cute girl asked me to the 8th grade formal, which was a really big deal to us at the time. And then he had her friend tell me it was all a joke about a month later. I felt like I was literally a joke and never fully recovered. It caused a sort of snowball effect, where I never felt confident enough to make a move on any girl I was interested in after that point. Consequently, I was repeatedly friend-zoned. I know that this was the fault of my own behavior, and I don't hold it against the women. Now I don't really believe that a woman can ever truly love me. I'm still kind of wrestling with that now, but I know I'm still young and have a lot of time to unlearn these thought patterns. Story 27. He was my first relationship. I was stupid and 18. The first time he laid his hand on me, I thought I deserved it. And he cheated. Repeat 1 and 2. Took a lot of self-searching and willpower to get out of that relationship. Thanks to that combo, it's now hard to trust others. My husband puts up with a lot of insecurities. It's hard to believe you're worth something when someone else doesn't seem to think so and sleeps with his coworkers. I get through it, but sometimes it's hard to let him go to school or even out to the supermarket without worrying that he'll try and pick someone up. I don't let him know because it's not worth a small argument that usually follows. I trust him with all my heart, but I've been there once. It's hard to convince myself it won't happen again. Story 28. I was engaged to someone I thought was the love of my life once upon a time ago. I did my best to prove how special I thought she was, and in the end, it turned out that cheating was the way to go for her. I was so crushed and hurt when she did what she did, and she even tried to get people to make me out to be the bad guy. I just wanted to pass away in my sleep. But that's in the past. Add that to losing friends I would consider close, but not wanting to do anything with me anymore once they enter relationships or replacing me in general or petty reasons. Like, I got ditched as a friend because I was unable to go and see Suicide Squad with them. I am basically going on in life as a lone wolf, and I'm thinking maybe is the best way to trust only myself and not push so much emphasis on trusting someone who may be a close ally in the future. Story 29. My only female friend used me. Other friends walked out like it never existed. Ex promised me he would never hurt me, then cheated. He also compared me to his ex while intoxicated before I found out. Apparently, she's much smarter and more attractive. My significant other's aunt took advantage of the fact my son and I were gone for a week and knowing the house would be a mess, called DHS. His mom took advantage of the situation and tricked me into giving my son up. I went into a horrible depression and stopped eating and just kind of checked out. And she rushed me into signing some papers even though I insisted on reading them first. I don't even remember the court date. Lastly, when we moved in, we only made friends with one neighbor. He had apparently taken substances one night and poured styrofoam and Skittles in our gas tank. We were already behind on rent and couldn't afford to get a cheap car or get it fixed. I had to walk my daughter all the way across town to school with a fractured foot. I avoid most people now. Story 30. Several of my childhood friends suddenly started pestering me for no reason whatsoever. I should have noticed the warning signs. They were pieces of crap who simply couldn't go a day without hurting someone else or treating someone else like crap. It was only a matter of time before I became the next target. Everyone else always has a motive. If someone is being nice to you, it's always because they want something from you. Trust is one of the most easily manipulated human emotions out there. There are millions upon millions of stories of people's trust being broken. It's incredibly common. If you're not careful, it will happen to you. Humans are like that. Selfish, oppressive, violent, and self-serving. A rotten species that ends one another by the millions. Story 31. My entire life has been a series of scapegoating and betrayal. I was also the weird kid, never felt popular, and never felt like I was good enough. I was pestered a lot in my childhood, which made me introverted and only speak to about 3 people in my classes. It never felt like the first choice. I felt like I've always had to work very hard for people to like me. Like Meg from Family Guy. No reason for disliking her, but they just do. I got dumped by my ex-fiancée of 4 years, 3 months after she proposed to me on New Year's Eve, telling me she didn't love me and saw me more as a friend with benefits. Despite texting every day, always saying we loved each other. My big brother is my parents' favorite. He's also the most successful and they talk and laugh at his jokes. Not to me, though. And then they wonder why I've gone depressed and don't trust when people give me a compliment. There's too much for me to write. But the point is, it's going to take a long and hard time to make me trust you. And even then, it will take more than that to make me love you. I don't want to be hurt again. Story 32. Mom would come in acting like a mother for a weekend, leave for a year, and I wouldn't hear from her, and then she'd do it over again, year after year. Dad married 4 times while I was a child and brought in a couple other women that acted like a stepmother for a bit. Dad was also verbally cruel towards me and my sister. Only person I actually trusted and let in and would tell when things were bothering me eventually got bitter towards me, cheated on me, and told me she hated everything about me. After high school, my best friends didn't talk to me for almost 2 years. Just worked and went to school a bit and played games, didn't socialize, had no one to rely on. All in all has left me with a mindset that everyone will come and everyone will go as they please. Get too close and they'll ditch you. If I let someone in, they'll run away. Slowly getting out of the mindset, if I let someone in, they'll run. And that's because of one of the best friends I've ever had, and I'm honestly scared she might eventually ditch me too. Story 33. Was common law for 15 years with my now ex-wife. Things weren't always perfect between us, but they were for the most part good. I wanted a child and was nearing 40. I had a good career and felt like the time was now. My partner, who had all along said that she wanted a child too, changed her mind. We almost broke up, but then she relented. I had a beautiful baby girl. After her daughter's birth, everything changed and she became cold and distant. I struggled for 7 years to try to make things work. The whole time, she wouldn't say what happened, but she said she was no longer attracted to me. My self-esteem took a beating during that time, making me a former shell of myself. I was living off crumbs. All I wanted was a family. Eventually left her and started dating. I found out much later she started having a long-distance relationship a year and a half before. She told this man she would have his child. I trusted this person for 20 years. How can I trust anybody ever again? Story 34. Well, I was a military kid growing up. I moved every 2 to 3 years, so I haven't had consistent friends before the last move, about 4 years ago, and I graduated high school. I'm finding out 2 big things. First, because I was yanked out of all my friendships with no closure, I still have some very, very close emotional ties to people, who were my best friends wherever I'd lived. I haven't seen in years. When I recently met up with someone in person again, they had moved on and weren't at all interested in picking up where we left off. I didn't push it, but it really hit me how I have this crappy old image of my old friends and all of them have moved on to other friends and some of them are completely different people. Second, I can't keep friends for more than 2 years or so now. My last move was to a new school in my junior year of high school. Then I moved after high school to go to college. After 2 years, I moved back to the town I graduated high school from to save money and get a good job. But in that time, I had made best friends, but now I have absolutely no desire to ever see them or talk to them. I've noticed, with the exception of one person, after the third year of having the same friend, I just stopped caring about them and was ready to move on. This took a huge toll on a really good relationship I was in. We had dated for 4.5 years, which is the longest I've ever had a friend in person. But after the fourth year, I had just lost interest. It sucks. I'm thinking about going to therapy to work it out because I don't particularly enjoy sitting in my room for hours at a time feeling nostalgic for friends and places I haven't seen or been to in over 5 years. Story 35. I have issues trusting authority. One time, my dad called CPS on my mom, and a service worker talked to me and gave me his word that anything I said would be 100% confidential. My mom would never know I said it. I opened up about her schizophrenia and how she picked up her son's ADD medication to use for herself. I got a call from her demanding to know why I told him everything I did. I called him over and over, left messages, but he never answered or called me back. He would, however, talk to my grown family members. I was around 13 to 14 at the time, so I wasn't a dumb little kid who barely knew how to operate a phone. To this day, if an officer, CPS worker, teacher, doctor, etc., says they won't tell anyone anything I say, I just can't believe them. I had a gynecologist tell my mom I wasn't pure at 14. I had a detective that was investigating my mistreatment tell me he wouldn't tell my dad why they weren't pursuing the charges. I didn't want to pursue it, but my dad was pressuring me to do so and didn't want him angry with me. But my dad said he called the detective and he was told they weren't pursuing because of me. I opened up to a school counselor or teacher about my mental health and they said they wouldn't call my dad, but they did. And I got in trouble for opening up because he thought if I told him I had depression and signs of being schizo, it'd go in my permanent record and everyone would know and they'd think we were a screwed up family. Parents, police, teachers, doctors. I can't even open up to my grandparents even though they've never betrayed my trust. I wish I knew how wrong all of this was when it happened to me instead of realizing years later. But even so, no one takes you seriously until you're grown and aren't really the ugly duckling anymore. I doubt a complaint from a 14-year-old would have done any good. Story 36. Because my parents divorced and 20 years later they're still hating each other for what happened. Because various ex-boyfriends have at one time or another tried to push me into having intimacy when I didn't want to. Because every year I have a bout of horrendous depression which tends to push a lot of people away. Even though I try so hard to battle it with therapy techniques. Because I try so hard to be there for people. Traveling long distances, putting off sorting out my life to go help them, changing myself to match how they are, and I rarely get the same effort in return. I don't even hate everyone. In fact, I think I love and empathize with everyone far too much, but I don't trust that I can keep them or that they will want to keep me. Story 37. My best friend in 8th grade had apparently been calling a bunch of people in school, pretending to be me and basically sounding pathetic and trying to humiliate me, all because the guy she liked, who was a close friend of mine but never really talked to her, asked me out. I even said no to him because I thought it would be messed up to date my best friend's crush. She did this for about a year and I finally found out when her former best friend told me. In 9th grade, she also sent herself a Valentine's Day gram for me. She said, "I miss you, I love you." Apparently, she showed it to a bunch of people and they believed I sent it. My parents never gave me money, so where the hell would I get the dollar for that Valentine's Day gram? Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.